Good morning, everyone. It's another edition of the Batter Round. I'm your host, Paul Valley. No, that is not Zack Goodman sitting in my chair with my name over his head. That is Ryan Blake, who is kind enough to join us today while Zack is out on assignment. What assignment? I have no idea, but Zack's not here. Ryan, you're in the studio. Thanks for coming in today and agreeing to do the show with us. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. The last couple of times I filled in, it's been for you. So I've been sitting at the table with Zack. I think the last time I was here with you was at least a year ago. So it's certainly good to be back. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, you're kind of our go-to when one of us isn't here, because you always do a good job. So we certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be having you in here many times throughout the spring and summer, and hopefully throughout the season. And before we get into that, because we're not sure, I'm pretty confident that there's going to be a season, but we're not positive that there's going to be one because they can't get it together with this new CBA. Before we get into that, I just want to remind you the Bat Around is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all the action from the best seat in the house and reserve your spot to watch the big game in the FanDuel Sportsbook right now by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com. And, Ryan, let's get right into it, man. These CBA negotiations, they didn't meet for over 40 days after they locked out, right? Did not meet for over 40 days. Then they finally meet, and Major League Baseball doesn't have a proposal that's worthwhile. And then the Players Union come back with a proposal that Major League Baseball doesn't consider worthwhile. And it's this back and forth. And then they're meeting multiple times a week. We're starting to feel good about things because, they're meeting multiple times. There's a sense of urgency. Major League Baseball comes to the Players Association comes to Major League Baseball with a proposal for a bonus pool of $105 million to get their players paid more before they hit arbitration. Major League Baseball counters at $10 million. That's $95 million apart, right?
And less than 10%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So the Players Union comes back with, okay, you want to slap us in the face, we'll slap you right back in the face. And their proposal is now, we're going to drop from $105 million to $100 million. Look, $5 million. Look, I get it. You're pissed off at Major League Baseball. And the lockout is on them. They started the lockout.
Yeah.
And then they came back to you at $10 million. Less than 10% of what you asked for. So I get it. You're pissed. But somebody has got to stop this pissing contest.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like it's a little bit of progress. I believe it's the last 3 days consecutively that they have indeed met, but they're not meeting in good faith. Like you said, they come in with this counter offer that's less than 10% of what they had been asking in the first place. And yeah, you have a right to be pissed off. And I think it's hilarious that the Players Association came back with, kind of the same budging in the other direction, the same amount. And now Major League Baseball comes in and says, all right, well, I think we need a federal mediator. That's something that professional organizations have done in the past. And the Players Association denied the request because they're saying, I mean, you have to at least give us something. You have to try to some extent. And people come up with the argument, I hate seeing these billionaires fight with millionaires. I don't want to hear any of that. These players are trying to get paid what they're worth. They're trying to be treated fairly, which is something you do in any profession. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, it's okay. So my dad talks to me about this a lot, and he's like, I can't get in. Okay, so first off, my dad will say I can't get into professional sports, but then he gets pissed off when the Orioles don't win and when the Ravens don't win, and he lets it bother him more than I do, and I'm the fan, right? But he says, they should win every game with how much they're getting paid. I can't stand these millionaires expecting hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's like they do something that nobody else in the world can do at an extremely high level, and they're providing entertainment. They're providing it's a $13 billion a year industry. Like, look, these owners' pockets aren't hurting at all. It's billionaires making billions and billions of more dollars.
Right.
The players just want their proper piece of the pie. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I saw somebody post that the average Major League career is like 2 years. You make $600,000 each year. That's $1.2 million. You've spent your entire life building for this. Your career is all this time in the minors, all this time every year, every day working on your game, honing your craft, just to get 2 years in the bigs, and then you're done. And then you're done. And $1.2 million, nice chunk of change, man. If I had $1.2 million, you give me $600,000, I'm set for a good while. Yeah. But I'm not set for life. You can't retire on $1.2 million. People can say, "Oh, well, you should just go back to school and get in the workforce." All right. When you've spent your entire this is okay, as a man, and I think men do this more so than women do. I'm not going to try and get into a battle of the sexes here, but I think men do this more so than women. We identify with our career, right?
Yeah.
I am what I do. I am a baseball sports talk radio host, right? This is what I do. This is who I am. I know that I'm also a husband and one day a father, and I'm a brother and a son and a grandson, but I identify with my job. If you identify with your career and then somebody tells you, all right, your career is over, do you know how hard it is to not identify with that when this is all you know? Now what am I going to do? Oh, go back to school. Okay, cool. How many times did you change your major in college? How many times have you gone back to school, Ryan?
I'm going back to school this semester for the first time in 4.5 years, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get my college degree until I was 29 years old because I had no idea what I was doing. And I wasn't a professional baseball player who did that my entire life. I had no idea what I was doing. And I went back to school probably 3 or 4 times before I finally said, you know what, this is what I want to do. And that's why I'm sitting in this chair now. But there's a reason I'm in my late 30s sitting in this chair instead of in my late 20s. So to say go get a career or go back and get a degree and get into the workforce, yeah, easier said than done. It's easier for you to say that because you haven't spent your entire life. Some people have. But this is something, to get to this level, you have to spend hours upon hours upon hours upon days upon months upon years doing this. And then you're just told, okay, you're done. Go do something else.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It's a full-time job for which you're not getting paid anywhere near a livable wage until you make it to the big stage. And the reason these guys are millionaires is because we're sitting on our couches at 7 p.m. every night, showing up at the stadium, once a week, once a month, once a season, whenever you get out to the stadium. That's why these players are millionaires. That's why they're begging for so much more, because they deserve it, because we're giving it to them.
They are the game.
Yeah.
They are the game. These owners, what they don't realize is without these players, they don't have the money that they have. Now, look, a lot of all of these guys made their money doing something other than baseball. And then they said, hey, I want to own a team. I'm going to do that. I'm going to pad my wallet even more. But without these players, you don't have a team to own. You don't have a game. You don't have fans. You're not getting that revenue every year because the players aren't playing. And now you're going to lock them out. You're not going to operate in good faith. You told them that you're coming in with a proposal. You don't. 2 days later, you come in with a federal mediator. And I have a text message. I believe it was from Alex Wood. Not a text message. He doesn't text me. I have a tweet. I believe it was from Alex Wood.
I remember reading this, but I don't remember what it was.
It would probably take 2 weeks just for a quote-unquote impartial mediator to get caught up enough to proceed. Then they use an already broken system / CBA as guideline toward a new deal. Makes 0 sense for anybody. Players are ready to make a fair, mutually beneficial deal. # at the table. This is what the players are saying. This guy's whoever this mediator is, man or woman, is going to come in here and they're gonna judge based on an old system that we're trying to get away from because they have no other parameters to work by. How can you say what's fair and what's not fair when all you have is the previous CBA?
Yeah, and it's a collective bargaining agreement. You have to bargain collectively if you want to come to an agreement. And the fact that these owners are just they're not giving the Players Association the time of day, and these guys just want to play. We as fans don't want to see spring training or the season potentially delayed. These players don't either. You think they're in these negotiations? No, like you said, they didn't get locked out. The owners locked them out. Mm-hmm. This wasn't a decision that the players made. They're not trying to be hard asses here. They're trying to get what they deserve and get back on the field. That's what all of us want, except the Owners Association.
A couple other tweets from players. Max Scherzer, we want a system where threshold and penalties don't function as caps, allows younger players to realize more of their market value, makes service time manipulation a thing of the past, and eliminates tanking as a winning strategy. From Jameson Tyon. If the goal is to get players on the field ASAP, then why did it take 43 days after the lockout to even hear from Major League Baseball? Didn't seem like a priority then. Why did we not get a counterproposal this week? It's all extremely tired antics and optics. From Whit Merrifield. Based on the incredible annual revenue of the league, we feel players with 0 to 3 years of service should be better compensated. We want to fix a competitive balance so every team's focus is winning year after year. We want to fix service time manipulation. And then from James Paxton, a significant part of collective bargaining is, wait for it, actually bargaining, #at the table. The players are ready to hear something. And I get the sense that if you come at them with a realistic proposal, they'd be willing to wiggle. They say we want $105 million in bonus pool for pre-arbitration players. You come back with $10 million, of course they're going to slap you in the face.
Yeah.
If you come back with $40 million, they'd be like, okay, let's find some common ground here. Maybe the next proposal is $90 million or $85 million. And then you can work together till you get to something. But to come back at $10 million shows you're not taking us seriously, so we're not going to take you seriously. I do agree that somebody needs to get in there and help with things because right now they're stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you do that when the only parameters are a previous CBA that's broken.
Exactly. And, these guys, like I said, they just want to get back on the field. And you're crazy if you think the owners aren't going to get their way to at least some extent. I mean, obviously you hope they operate in some type of good faith, but to this point it just hasn't happened, and there's no real reason to believe that they're going to budge. And the players, my opinion is that the players are eventually going to give in, whether they get a good offer or not, because like I said, they want to get back on the field. We all want them to get back on the field. They're not going to get paid at all unless they are on the field. So, like you said, if they come back with even a somewhat realistic counteroffer, the players I think are going to be the ones who budge a little bit more.
Do you feel like, we already know spring training is not starting on time. It just isn't. I said on this for a couple of weeks now on this show to Zach that for some reason the date March 1st keeps sticking out in my head. I feel like they'll have a deal done by the end of February. They'll start spring training around March 1st, so you get 4 weeks of spring training, which is really all they need anyway. You get 4 weeks of spring training, and then you get the season started on time on March 31st. That's what I felt until this has happened. I'm still going to stick with March 1st just because my gut tells me, but I don't know how anybody can have any confidence that anything's getting done anytime soon.
I mean, it's February 5th today. They've met each of the last 3 days for a couple weeks now. They've been meeting a few times a week. I find it hard to believe that they can't get something done by the end of the month if they continue on the same path of meeting as often as they have been. But the meetings have to mean something.
Right.
And to this point, they really haven't. And, I think March 1st is a realistic deadline. I think 4 weeks of spring training is solid. The Orioles don't need to stretch their pitchers out that much. They don't go more than 5 minutes anyway.
Right.
So, yeah.
No pitchers do anymore, man.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think March 1st is realistic. I would be surprised if we hit that date and there's not an agreement in place, or at least nothing close. But, yeah, my hope, like you said, is at least 4 weeks of spring training to get the guys in shape for the season, and hopefully we don't have to sacrifice any regular season games.
And I saw somebody else, and I don't think this was a player. I think this was a journalist. But basically what they said was that the owners are going to a mediator because they don't want a player strike. And they locked out because they don't want a player strike. And basically, if they had not locked out and they just let the offseason go and they were negotiating under good faith, that they were scared that the players, when the season was about to start, would strike, not play, even though they could play. They could go to spring training. They could start the season and still operate under the old CBA while they're negotiating the new one. We have no idea. It remains to be seen now if the players would have, under good faith, not strike. I'm inclined to believe. I'm not going to sit here and say it's all roses for the Players Association and say, oh no, they're good guys. They wouldn't have done it. I'm pretty sure there would have been a strike. There was a strike back in 94, 95 for the same thing. It took them 7 months to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm not confident. In fact, I don't think there's a chance that the Players Union wouldn't have started the strike. But the owners are the ones that did lockout. And you're going to lock out, and then instead of offering another proposal, go get a mediator for something that you put in place. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Also, waiting 43 days to come to the Players Association with anything.
Yeah.
What are you doing? 7-minute meeting on December 1st. 7 freaking minutes.
I mean, what is that? That's not a meeting.
It's not a meeting. It's like, hey, do you want to meet our demands? No. Do you want to meet our demands? No. All right. See you later.
Yeah.
That's basically what that was.
Yep.
And then to not come back for a month and a half, what are we doing?
It's absurd.
If you care about baseball, you know who suffers right now? The fans. The fans are the ones that are suffering. The millionaire players, they still have their money. The billionaire owners, they still have their money. And that's not – I hate to just go as simplified as saying it's millionaires fighting with billionaires. But you guys still have your money and your cushy lifestyles. We're the ones sitting here in the middle of February, freezing our butts off, trying to have hope for warmer days and better days and sunshine, which is the first day we've seen the sun in about a month.
Yep.
Sitting here hoping and praying that we have baseball, and we have nothing. Right now we should be excited about spring training. And right now we're not excited. It's the exact opposite. It's doom and gloom because where the hell is baseball?
Yeah, the Orioles posted a tweet, their annual video of, we're packing up and leaving for Sarasota, and I pretty much ignored it. I was like, this doesn't mean anything right now.
Yeah, I didn't look at it. I saw the Oriole bird, and I'm like, cool, means nothing.
I think I saw someone quote tweet it and scrolled past it, and that was it. And I haven't thought about it since.
It sucks. There's no getting around it. It sucks. And what's really hard, man, is I do a baseball show every week.
Yeah.
What the hell are we going to talk about? And we find things to talk about, right? And look, I'm a pro. This is what I do. I can talk about the Orioles every day for hours on end until I'm blue in the face. So it's not really an issue. But there are difficulties in putting together a weekly show on baseball when baseball's not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got me on here as a guest, and I'm pretending I know how collective bargaining agreements work. So I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right. Now let's talk a little bit about baseball right now because Cedric Mullins came out the other day and said that he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease prior to the 2021 season. He in spring training in 2020, he was having some issues. He said that he was in a lot of pain, but he thought it was just food poisoning, and then it didn't go away. And then there's blood in the urine. There's pain using the bathroom. And so he goes in and he gets diagnosed with Crohn's disease. He goes in, he has surgery. He has 10 centimeters removed from his intestine. And then he gets an infection. And he loses 20 pounds. And then he goes out and has one of the greatest seasons in the history of the franchise, puts up a 30-30. He's the starting center fielder in the All-Star game. He wins the Silver Slugger. And he gives fans really the only thing to cheer for in 2021 is Cedric Mullins' incredible season. And he did it fighting Crohn's disease, fighting an intestinal infection, and 20 pounds under his playing weight.
It's nothing short of remarkable.
It's absolutely incredible.
First of all, for a guy who starts to experience these symptoms around the same time that his teammate Trey Mancini is diagnosed with colon cancer, talk about a ripple effect through the organization. I mean, the players had to be down on that, absolutely. But to fight through it in silence for a year, to go in to have surgery, get it taken care of, and then to be in a position, like you said, with the infection, you lose 20 pounds. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to be ready for the start of the season. And I've had one of my good friends I used to work with had Crohn's disease, and people who don't understand it don't realize just how much pain, how much discomfort you're in pretty much all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good experience at all. And to go out and put together one of the best seasons in Orioles history while dealing with that, and nobody knew aside. I'm sure people close to him knew, but it's spectacular.
It's unbelievable. And then we sit here, and we've been saying all off season, expect a regression. But now, what should we expect? Because there's videos of him working his butt off in the gym, working his tail off, and he's going to be back to his normal playing weight. I don't know how long it took him to get back to being comfortable in his body. Maybe it happened. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it took till, okay, let me get through the season. Let me get to the offseason, and then we'll put the weight back on him. I have no idea. For a guy who's already small in Cedric Mullins, to lose 20 pounds is significant. I didn't notice it. I didn't know, but how can you? They're wearing baggy uniforms. How would you notice it? But I still don't know that we're going to see him hit 291 with 30 homers and 30 stolen bases. I don't know that we're going to see that again. But I think that you can have realistic expectations that maybe there won't be such a regression because he's on top of things now. He knows what he's dealing with. He's got a full off season where he's not battling, where he's not having surgery, not battling infection, not having to lose 20 pounds. Maybe he comes back out and does the same thing next year. I think it's realistic to say, let's pump the brakes on the regression talk because we had no idea what this dude was going through.
Yeah, and if he can come out and have a career year at maybe, 60-70% strength throughout the season on average maybe, and now he's coming back at 100%, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him. And, yeah, like you said, he's probably not going to have another 30-30 season. He's probably not going to hit 300 again. But, I mean, man, to look at what he's done and what he continues to do in the offseason, these workout videos he's been posting, he looks jacked now.
Yeah.
And is he going to be a 40 homer? I mean, obviously temper expectations, but, if he can do what he did last year while fighting this discomfort, who knows what he can do when he's 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And that left field wall shouldn't impact him because I think he either hit the center or pulled almost all of his home runs last year. Maybe once I remember him going Oppo Taco last year.
Yeah, once or twice maybe.
And real quick, because I never got a chance to. What is your feelings on the Orioles? Went from having one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in baseball to having one of the deepest left field non-hitter-friendly ballparks in the matter of a month.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of moving the wall back. I think they might be trying to overcorrect a little bit. 384 to almost down the line is a significant increase from what it was before. 400 to left center is pretty massive. I'm surprised they are moving it back that much. The one thing I don't like is raising the wall because I think at every stadium most of the outfield wall should be robbable because home run robberies are some of the most exciting plays in the game. So I don't love the idea of a 13-foot wall. But I like the idea of moving it back. I think, with a lot of left-handed hitters coming up through the system, a lot of pitchers poised to make their debuts soon. I think they obviously did their research and they know what goes into these decisions, and they are doing something that they think is going to be best for the long term of the team. So I don't hate it. I think they might be moving it back a little too much, but all in all, I mean, it's fine with me.
I don't know how much we're going to notice it after a couple of months. Yeah. I think we're just going to get used to it. What I'm excited about, man, is I love the contact aspect of baseball. I love doubles and triples and getting guys over and sac flies and stuff like that. I love fundamental baseball and manufacturing runs. And we all love the home run. But I'm hoping that what this does is that it takes away that all or nothing aspect of the game, at least for the Orioles, and it makes them more complete hitters because it's like, you know what? I'm going to really have to get one to get it out over that left field wall. And every now and again I will. But let me just focus on going gap to gap, line to line, and just spraying the ball all over the field. And I think it's going to make them ultimately better hitters. And then you have guys like Colton Cowser coming through the system who does spray the ball all over the field. And it just makes you so, for me, it makes me so much more excited. The idea of more doubles, more triples, and more guys on base. Excuse me. I'm super excited about it. The one thing is that wonky 90-degree angle. You don't want to see somebody get hurt. Now, look, I don't think that you're going to see people running face first into the wall, but it's going to be a learning aspect. And I do think that they need to do something down in Sarasota to make the Camden Yards field like this one so that these guys during spring training can spend every single day working on that field. Cedric Mullins can, what's it going to be like if he's the only one that can get to a ball in left center and he has to go to a wall and then turn a corner?
Right.
You know what I mean? But look, we have a great show coming up for you here. In just a matter of moments, we're going to have Stan the Fan Charles on the line talking about Orioles and a little bit of the CBA agreement, or the lack thereof. Excuse me. At 11 o'clock from... I don't know what's going on.
Hey.
At 11 o'clock from BaltimoreBaseball.com, we're going to have Rich Dubroff on here. One of my favorite guests on the show, always willing to come on, always willing to talk, and has a lot to say. So he'll be on at 11 o'clock. Ryan is going to sound off in Zach's place today. We're also going to do a segment of Orioles banter. I'm supposed to have – so this was the week that Zach was supposed to have trivia for me to close the show. And then he says, you know what, I'm not coming in today, so screw you, Paul. So I'm going to try and figure out some trivia for you, Ryan, before the end of the show. I'll try and make it some Orioles trivia for you.
Okay.
So we got that. We got more coming up on the show. While I get Stan on the line, Ryan, the show today is brought to us by Glenn Clark Radio.
It sure is, Paul. Pressbox's Glenn Clark Radio is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/pressboxonline or facebook.com/pressboxsports. Or listen at pressboxonline.com/radio. With podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR this week. The guys caught up with Orioles outfielder Cedric Mullins, Ravens legend Adelius Thomas, and all of the area's college lacrosse coaches. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com.
All right, and without further ado, joining us on the line today for his weekly segment, we have Stan the Fan. Charles, Stan, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, guys. How you doing?
We're doing really well, It seems like just in the last couple of days, things have taken a pretty bad turn here. For the collective bargaining agreement negotiations. The players propose $105 million in revenue sharing, in bonus pool money. The Major League Baseball comes back with $10 million. Players take it as a slap in the face. They drop their demands by just $5 million. And now Major League Baseball, they want to go to a federal mediator to try and get things settled out. What does this look like to you, Stan, from the outside looking in?
I would say this is. I've gone in just this week. I was very optimistic that there would start to be a little bit of movement. I've gone the other way now, and it looks like we're in for a. Now I've seen enough of these to know that the owners can sort of turn on a dime, but I think you've had pretty much every concession you're going to get from the players right now, with dropping the effort to move from 6-year free agent to 5-year, sort of dropping some of the luxury tax stuff, I think. But I think we're, it's clear that spring training is starting to be in real jeopardy,
Yeah,
which is I just happened to write this column for the paper that'll come out in mid-February, which is really, it's really pretty disgraceful, and both sides share the blame, whatever you want to, the players weren't caught off guard by the owners going to lockout on December the 2nd. But if you remember, the commissioner said he was hoping to accelerate the urgency. That was the term he used by doing this. And there's been no effort by either side to really accelerate any urgency to get this done. And now they've sort of dropped the turd on everybody, all the baseball fans, on February 2nd to 4th, that hey, this really is got the ability now to start to impact spring training and maybe impact the season. And what's particularly disgraceful about this is there's these communities in Arizona and Florida that have paid millions of dollars of tax money to build these stadiums, as a return on investment in tourism and economic development. And baseball is basically kind of pissed on them, and it's reprehensible. It really is.
Oh yeah, that Sarasota community lives for February and March. That's when they thrive, and to not have the Orioles there, to not have them getting ready for another season, it hurts their economy a great deal. I'm glad you brought that up, Sam, because you can't minimize, you can't undervalue just how big of a hit that those communities are going to take. Now you say, but it's both on the players and the league that they haven't gotten together. A tweet from Jamison Taillon. He says, if the goal is to get players on the field ASAP, then why did it take 43 days after the lockout to even hear from Major League Baseball? It didn't seem like a priority then. Why did we not get a counterproposal this week? It's all extremely tired antics and optics. So based on that, it seems like the players have been waiting and waiting and waiting for Major League Baseball to come to them.
Well, when you're in a situation like this, it doesn't take much for, I mean, that rings a little hollow to me. That why did they wait 43 days? So in other words, you were calling them every day saying, let's get together
That's a good
with
point.
meetings. That doesn't hold a lot of water to me.
No,
While I'm less sympathetic to ownership in general, I think sort of this is a pox on both of their houses.
yeah, and I said this to Ryan. And by the way, Ryan Blake is sitting in for Zack Goodman on the show today. If you were not aware of
Okay.
that,
Okay. No, I was unaware of that.
yeah,
Hey
he,
Hi,
Stan, how you
Ryan.
doing?
Good. Good. Good.
but yeah, I was saying to Ryan before the show started, and actually at the beginning of the show, that look, there's a lot of people siding with the players in this one. I'm not siding with either side. I think both of these sides are at fault. I think that it was a joke that the league came back with 10 million when the players were asking for 105 million, and then I think that the players' reaction to that was a joke also because they acted like, well, you're giving us a slap in the face. We'll slap you in the face. We're only going to lower our demands by $5 million. Neither
Right.
side is operating in good faith, but the reason that the players that the union is not the union. That the league is coming under more fire right now is because they're the ones that started the lockout. They're the ones that put this in place, and now instead of arguing in good faith, they're saying, you know what, let's get a mediator in here. But I'm not convinced, and I'm all but certain that the players would have striked had it gotten to that point. I don't think the regular season would have started if Major League Baseball hadn't locked them out. I think a strike was
No,
coming
but
regardless.
again, you're fighting you're fighting the real war and you're fighting the PR war, and there's no question that ownership looks more to blame. That they they're the ones that initiated a lockout, and they cited the reason that they hoped it would accelerate the urgency. And then what James Tyon said is true, that it really should have been incumbent upon them because they're supposed to be the real grown-ups in the room,
Yeah.
Major League Baseball. They're the stewards. They're really the stewards of the game, and they owed a better effort here. You know,
Yeah, and then
and the discussion about a mediator is that's a PR that's a PR stunt. I mean,
100%.
my days of thinking that a federal mediator is just going to come in and wave a magic wand and go, hey, you just split this in half. You just split this in half. Those things generally aren't incredibly successful. I would like to see both sides embrace that and truly give it a chance. But it's more a PR battle, and it really is stupid of the Players Association not to at least say, yeah, we'll go along with that. That doesn't mean the fact that you agree to mediation doesn't mean you're going to give in on every point because it's not a binding arbitration or mediation. It's it's an agreed to, and when you agree to it, under these circumstances, there would be no way that mediator can compel you to make certain decisions. They just try and come in and get everybody thinking more common sense and trying to find middle ground.
Well, Alex Wood, pitcher for the Giants, he puts out a tweet yesterday that says it will probably take 2 weeks just for an impartial mediator to get caught up enough to proceed. They then use an already broken system/CBA as guideline toward a new deal. Makes zero sense for anybody. Players are ready to make a fair, mutually beneficial deal. So the reason the players are against this is because they think that this mediator is going to come in and operate based on the guidelines of the previous CBA, which the players do not like at all, and they're afraid that it's not really going to be impartial because
Yeah, I mean that's really the thrust of that's really the thrust of this whole thing. When you distill it down, is the players don't want to sort of move to the middle of where they are because they didn't like where they were, you know.
yeah,
And that gets back to the people that really a negotiation is really about the people that are handling the negotiation, not necessarily the issues, you know. Somehow Rob Manfred, when he worked for Major League Baseball and wasn't the commissioner of Major League Baseball, he worked pretty well with Michael Weiner, you know. Michael Weiner tragically died of brain cancer about 6 years ago. and Tony Clark was put in a position he wasn't really ready for, and Rob Manfred kind of took him to the cleaners, and we're still suffering from that right now.
Absolutely. Now, we are well aware that spring training is not going to start on time. I saw something yesterday that on Thursday, Rob Manfred's probably going to come out. Bob Nightingale said this, so you take what he says with a grain of salt, but
Yeah.
he said that
Yeah.
Manfred's going to come out on Thursday and say spring training will be delayed. I don't think there's any getting around that. But, Stan, are we now looking at potentially the Major League season being pushed back? I mean, the last time this happened, it took 7 months to agree on a new CBA. Are we looking at a loss of regular season games at this point?
I think we're pretty darn close to it. You know, I mean, I think there's about a 2.5 weeks from this point in time, we will be in real major jeopardy of that if there's not some sign of some progress. You know,
Yeah, no.
once you do see some sign of progress, things end up, you know, it's sort of a folded tent at that time if things start moving in a direction, but they just haven't started to move in that direction at all, in any direction right now.
Not at all. Not at all.
Nope.
So it's
Nope.
and especially, Stan, how bad of a look is this for? I mean, we know it's a bad look for baseball, but you had a 60-game season in 2020 because of the pandemic, where both sides were squabbling like brother and sister through the whole thing, and they couldn't agree on anything longer than 60 games. That was really put in place by an arbiter. It was like, look, we're just going to do 60 games because that was the minimum that they could do. Now you're looking at a year and a half later, they're still arguing over the same things. They can't get on the same page. They've really had such a long time, and they put it off so much, and now regular season games are in jeopardy.
What's particularly disgraceful, I'm sorry to interrupt your question,
Quite
but
all
what's particularly disgraceful is after what they went through in 2020, they could have looked down the road and said, man, Manfred and Tony Clark have gotten together at some point with a couple other people in the room and said, man, we cannot embarrass ourselves by pissing on the game. You know, I'm using that term. And they really have really done nothing to really be true stewards of the game at this point in time. You know, the game is going to take a hit. I mean, they look particularly bad right now when, you know, the fact that they've had 26 years of labor peace doesn't really measure up to a rat's ass of anything right now, you know, because both sides look incredibly selfish, incredibly incapable of grasping what the damage that they're doing to the game.
Now, it's easy to sit here and say, well, if they had done this, well, the other side would have done that, and maybe this would have happened. There's no way to really know. But do you think that if the league, when the players made their first proposal saying $105 million bonus pool, if the league had come back with something in the $40 to $50 million range, that the players would have then had more wiggle room, come with a more realistic re-proposal, or do you think that this is basically just two sides drawing a line in the sand, and it doesn't matter how far you come to me, I'm not stopping till I get what I want?
It sure seems like that, you know. I mean, it's really hard to imagine how they could be that far apart on something like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, moving on to some Orioles news, Stan. We had
I know it's you know, it's odd to move on. You know, I click on to MLBTradeRumors.com every day, hoping for a little bit of good news about something, and all they write about are the post-lockout moves that the Texas Rangers might make, the Phillies might make. You know,
right.
That's all they have to write about right now. But go ahead.
So he's a big part of Press Box's best of issue that's out in stores right now. Cedric Mullins puts up one of the greatest seasons in the history of the franchise, and he comes out the other day and says, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease before last season. He had surgery, had 10 centimeters of intestine removed, got an infection, lost 20 pounds, and then all he does is go out, put up a 30-30 season, start the All-Star game in center field, and win a Silver Slugger. How much more impressive was the season that Cedric Mullins just put up based on what we know now that he was dealing with?
Well, it really does sort of ratchet it up a little bit, or quite a bit, to understand the physical disabilities he was dealing with at the time. So, you know, I said it was an incredibly remarkable season, and there's nothing else you can say. It's even a little bit more remarkable than it appeared on the surface.
Oh, and by the way, he also gave up switch hitting while dealing with all that and decided just to
Yeah,
hit from the left
yeah,
side, right? So
yeah,
now
yeah.
we've been talking, Stan, ever since the season ended, that we should expect a regression from Cedric Mullins. But now he's got a fully healthy offseason. He can put that weight back on. He's been killing it in the weight room, as we've seen on his Instagram videos. Uh, how much of a regression should we really expect, knowing that he's now going to be healthier than he was at this point last year with an opportunity to come out and put up another big season?
Well, we're clearly not going to know that, until they start playing games that mean something. But
Right.
the intangible in all this is that Cedric Mullins battled through not only the disease he was fighting, Crohn's disease, which is particularly debilitating, but he was fighting through what, in my opinion, had to be an amazing crisis of confidence, and what all the analytics in the world and all the talk about the regression to the mean, which is a highfalutin way of saying that if somebody out of nowhere hits 290 and 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases after what he had appeared to be as a player, it's it's fairly understood that, well, he won't do that again. But it doesn't take into the equation the human part of this thing, which is the confidence factor. So I I would think the chances are greater that Cedric Mullins would be a 260 hitter and 14 home runs and still steal 30 bases and play a terrific center field and potentially be a bit of an igniter at the top of the order. But but we won't know that. He might have just moved into a different realm as a player because of confidence.
Yeah, you can't understate confidence, and there's no number, there's no analytic, there's no sabermetric
Yep.
that can measure confidence and belief in oneself. And what we don't mention is that on top of all that, he was fighting for a job last spring. He was battling with Austin Hayes. People were labeling, myself included, labeling him as a fourth outfielder. He had to go in there while giving up hitting from the right side, had to go in there and fight for a job and win it outright. And that's exactly what he did. Now he gets to go in there and really relax and really go off because he doesn't have to worry about that. He knows that on March 31st, God willing, he'll be marching out to center field for the Orioles as their starting center fielder. He's got that job locked down. How big of an impact could that have for him that now he doesn't have to look over his shoulder? He can relax and really play his game.
Well, I mean, that's what we were just talking about with the confidence
Yeah.
factor. I mean, remember, he scratched and clawed in 2020 to make himself appear to be relevant to Brandon Hyde and somebody worthy of playing time. But how many bunt hits did he have that year? I think it
9.
was like about 10 or 12 bunt hits that year. Those bunt hits are what allowed him to have the numbers that still gave the Orioles hope that he could be a meaningful player. And it probably wasn't. I'm guessing it was probably an Austin Hayes injury that opened up the chance for him to really start playing again.
That's exactly what it
And
was
then,
when he got drilled by that pitch in Philly and he broke his ribs. He was
yep,
out for a month, and Cedric came in and took off
yep,
running.
yep.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a remarkable story. And again, the analytics, yeah, they're probably right more times than not, but they're not right 100% of the time.
Yeah. Now, somebody else who was famously dealing with off the field issues last year was Trey Mancini, and he's now 18 months removed from just about 18 months removed from finishing his final chemotherapy session. Look, I don't care what anybody says. While what Trey Mancini did last year was absolutely remarkable and miraculous, for Trey Mancini, by his standards that he set, he had a down year last year. At one point he was leading the league in RBIs, and then he finished the year with like 71 runs driven in, a 255 251 batting average. it was a down year for Trey Mancini, and that's to be expected coming off of what he came off of. Can we look at Trey Mancini and say he's another year removed, and while we know you're never the same after going through something like that, do you expect a return to the norm for Trey, something closer to 280 and maybe closer to 30 home runs, or do you think that Trey kind of is the player now because of everything he went through that we saw in the past?
I've talked about this before. I had him on my fantasy team, and I paid a fair value for him. I definitely paid a little higher than I should have. And what I didn't take into account in my, because my fantasy league drafts by auction, and you get emotionally involved with both the player that you're bidding on, and also you have to calculate who's off the board. So you sort of do a calculation of who's still going to be available. So I paid $26 for Trey Mancini, which is not top drawer, but it was significant with what he was up against. And up until July 4th or 5th, it looked like I had made a terrific acquisition. And then it was like after the All-Star game and all that energy he used in that, which I believe he was almost running on adrenaline fumes at that point. He from the All-Star game on, I think he hit about 5 home runs and drove in about 16 or 18 runs, something like that. It was just not Trey Mancini. And in retrospect, I guess you could say, and feel pretty confident in saying, he just hit a wall, and he didn't have much left in the tank, And what made it a little bit more exacerbated was that he was so prideful, and there wasn't anything like he was hurting the Orioles' chances to make the playoffs.
Right.
They were thrilled to have him out there every day because of what he had gone through and what it symbolized. But chances are a 2-week stint on an IL, where he just would have sort of rested and relaxed a little bit, probably would have helped him overall put up better numbers in the second half of the season. But you can understand from his point of view, it was sort of like it was a challenge for him to not go on the IL last year after what the previous year had given him. So kudos to Trey Mancini. And yeah, I would think that he will be much more likely to be the player he was, before cancer surgery.
That would be a serious coup for the Orioles if that's the case. Maybe I'm the only one who knows this. Trey Mancini's never been a particularly muscular guy, but to me, he looked noticeably thinner last year.
Yes,
he was noticeably thinner.
Slower. He looked slower. His bat speed slowed, and he did look thinner to me. No question about it. I mean, the season clearly wore on him, and frankly, a person would be superhuman not to have had the kind of fatigue that he had,
Now, here's the thing with that. We see these workout videos from Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins. You're not seeing anything from Trey Mancini. I'm wondering if he's doing things behind the scenes and he's going to show up looking like a different guy.
I have no idea.
We really have no idea. But let's say that he does, and he puts up Trey Mancini numbers like 2019. Do you think the Orioles are more inclined to try to extend him at that point, or are they more inclined to try and trade him? What does your gut tell you in regards to that?
Don't have a real strong gut feeling on that right now, because I just don't know what the club's economics are going to be.
No, that's.
I mean, look, listen. They drew 770,000 people last year through a 162 game schedule. That's 81 home dates. And now they are sort of fighting the battle to sell tickets, both with an inferior team and their hands are tied behind their backs, unable to sell tickets right now, in any meaningful way. I can't tell you, I can't cite how many single game tickets they sold the other day. I think they went on sale, but I guarantee you it wasn't the number it would have been if this were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I can't calculate what their numbers are going to be. They're spending in the other areas of player development, the Latin America effort, the and the minor leagues. What they're drafting and signing their players. They appear to be okay, but I don't know how much they have in terms of budgeting for payroll. So my feeling is that Trey is sort of still going to be the last guy that they sort of, he and Means are sort of the guys that might not make it to the next round.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be in a wait and see. First and foremost, we got to get back on the field. So
Yep.
let's get that figured out, and then we'll figure everything else after that. Stan, thanks so much for joining us. Always
you're
great
doing a
talking with you.
terrific job, Paul, under the circumstances. I know it's not easy to come in and sort of manufacture stuff to talk about, but you're doing a good job.
Thank you, sir. I certainly appreciate that. It means
All
a
right.
lot. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week.
Okay.
Take care,
All
Stan.
right. Bye-bye.
That was Stan the Fan, Charles, joining us for his weekly segment, as he always does every Saturday here on the Batter. And I just want to remind you that Stan has two great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Wednesday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. And actually, it's on Thursdays now. Stan and Gary do their show on Thursdays now. This week, Stan and Ross hosted the Baseball Roundtable with Adam Gladstone and Big League Chew founder Rob Nelson. Then Stan and Gary welcomed the Athletics Ravens beat writer Bo Smolka. Find those shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Coming up on Monday, Stan and Ross will be joined by the Otter himself, former Orioles closer Greg Olson. We're going to catch a break. When we come back, we are going to talk to Rich Dubroff from BaltimoreBaseball.com. That and more on the Batter Round.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short-rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
From all of the biggest games to the smallest events, make every bet worth your while at MyBookie. Start by doubling your first deposit instantly with MyBookie's first deposit bonus up to $1,000. Double your money before you even place a bet, and all you have to do is sign up and deposit using the exclusive promo code PRESSBOX at mybookie.ag. If your first deposit is $100, MyBookie adds $100 so you can start with $200 to play with. If your first deposit is $1,000, MyBookie adds $1,000 so you can start with $2,000 to play with. With tons of great games and prop bets to take advantage of this week, there is truly something for everyone. Don't wait any longer. Head to MyBookie today to redeem your double deposit bonus so you can start winning big today. That's promo code PRESSBOX to receive double your first deposit instantly in your account. No hassle, no wait. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
The latest issue of PressBox is available now, and it's our very special annual Best of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Welcome back to the Bat Around. I'm Paul Valley. Again, sitting in for Zack Goodman today is Ryan Blake, gracious enough to join us today and help us out a little bit. The first hour of the show is just about in the books, and it's been brought to you today by Toyota RAV4. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4, available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. And we have a few minutes before we get Rich Dubroff from BaltimoreBaseball.com on the line here. Ryan, we were just talking about it during the break, really about Trey Mancini and what he means to this team. And like you said to me during the break, Trey's a ball player. Trey knows what he just did last year. He knows coming back from cancer, putting up the season that he put up, being back on the field. He could have hit 190, would have been the comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
Trey knows that. Trey also knows that his season was substandard when it comes to Trey Mancini. Not a doubt in my mind that dude's working his butt off right now, and he wants to come back and put up 2019 Trey Mancini numbers. You're inclined to think that he's a trade chip, though, rather than somebody that they're going to extend long term.
Well, you mentioned he's on the wrong side of 30 at this point, and you don't know how many good years he has left. But you did say, Mancini's a ball player, and he's always going to have the story. He's always going to be this feel-good story. But he wants to go out there and rake. He wants to replicate his 2019 numbers. 35 home runs, hit almost 300. That's the kind of ball player that Trey Mancini wants to be. He doesn't want to be the guy who beat cancer. He wants to be one of the best hitters in baseball, and that's what I think he's capable of. But with the situation the Orioles are in, with this rebuilding team, we don't know if it's going to be another couple years before they're sniffing a 500 record. But I think he's got to be a guy who, if he comes out swinging and he seems to have returned to form, I think there's going to be a market for him, and I think the Orioles have to consider, moving him, especially considering you've got Ryan Mountcastle now, who's going to be a staple in your lineup, who plays the same position Mancini does. You've got Kobe Mayo and Gunnar Henderson are both going to come up probably as third baseman. One of them's going to have to DH every once in a while. You're not sure where there's going to be a spot for a guy like Mancini a few years down the road when these young guys are knocking on the door, and you've got a guy who can only play first base and DH.
Yeah, and some of the guys that you didn't mention, like a Heston Kjerstad or a Kyle Stowers, so you have a ton of guys who are probably going to hit, but they might not have a position. Somebody's got to DH, somebody's got to play right field, somebody's got to play first base, and Trey Mancini, being the fact that he's going to be 31 years old when his final season with the Orioles is over, or pushing 31, because I believe he turns 30 in March this year.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so by the time that he hits free agency, he'll be entering his age 31 season. How does he factor into the Orioles' plans when they have all these guys who are younger who can hit just as well, if not better, and not all of them have a position? Heston Kjerstad was arguably the best left-handed hitter in the country at the amateur level when he got drafted number 2 overall by the Orioles. He's back on the field now. Hopefully you're going to see him really hit the ground running and take off for them. Where are you going to play him? You've got to have places in your order, and Trey Mancini may be pushing himself out. If Trey Mancini's 25 years old, we're having a different conversation about
Absolutely.
it. But he's 30.
Yeah, and I think it's still a little bit too early at this point, and I know I brought this up myself, but it's a little early to consider moving him because you've got these young guys coming up through the system. Obviously, they're not here yet. It's going to be a couple years before they are. But you have to at least have that on the back burner. And, I mentioned Mountcastle. He's already here. He's already a staple. You don't want to put Mountcastle back in left field. You want to be able to play him at first base every day. And you want to be able to give guys days at designated hitter. Consider a guy like Mullins who's fighting what he is at this point. You want to give him a rest every once in a while, but you want to keep his bat in the lineup. So
Adley Rutschman's a guy who's going to DH probably 30 times this year.
Yeah, so you have to consider where is a guy like Trey going to be, and if you can get some value back for him, if like I said, if he comes out swinging, he's returned to form a little bit. You've got to see what you can get for him. At least float his name out there.
No, I absolutely agree. And guys, this is the thing that you have to come to grips with in a rebuild, is that there's going to be players that you love, that you fall in love with. For me, it was Jonathan Villar in 2019. The season that he put up was so phenomenal in 2019. He was legitimate. If you go back and you look at the season that Jonathan Villar put up, he had 24 homers. He stole over 40 bags. He hit about 279. You look at that, he put up one of the best seasons in the American League that year, and nobody talked about it because he was a Baltimore Oriole. And then the Orioles, they didn't want to pay him $12 million, so they traded him for Easton Lucas, That's a guy who I was so upset to see go, and that's going to continue to happen because, and now it's not going to be because you want to try and get prospects for him. It's going to happen because these prospects are turning into players that you want to have on your team. And so some of these guys, and the other thing is some of these prospects that you've fallen in love with, like a Kyle Stowers or a Jordan Westberg, they might not be here either. They might get traded. Somebody that you love is going to get traded, and it's just something you got to be ready for, and that's what you deal with when you have too little positions for too many good players.
Yeah, and it sucks, but it's part of the game. Like you said, it's something you just have to deal with, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We're about to get Rich Dubroff on the line here, and Rich's appearance today is brought to you by the latest print issue of Press Box.
Yes, indeed. There are only a few days left to pick up Press Box's annual Best of Print issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
All right, and joining us live on the line now from BaltimoreBaseball.com, he is Rich Dubroff. Rich, thanks for joining us today and giving us a couple minutes of your time on a Saturday morning.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on, Paul.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show with us here, Rich. First and foremost, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a couple of months. How you been?
I'm cold.
Yeah, we all are.
I'm cold. I'm a little eager for a little antsy, getting eager for baseball, but otherwise I'm just fine. I had a list of books that I was going to try and read during this period, and unfortunately, I think I may come close to getting through that list.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, because you'd rather have baseball to talk about and baseball to pay attention to, and we just don't have that right now, Rich. Seems like the union and the league can't get on the same page. Now the league's trying to get a federal mediator in to do things, and the players are pumping the brakes on that. They don't want any part of that. What's the latest you can tell us about what's going on with these CBA negotiations?
Well, it just seems like they move backwards a bit here.
Yeah.
I've been following it. As a lot of people have from reading about it, and I thought somebody had a good analogy when the players and the owners were talking, and it seemed like they had productive conversations a bit, maybe last week. They said, well, maybe it moved from 3rd and 16 to 4th and 14. That there was incremental progress, but still a lot to go. And now it just seems like this is going to take a long while to get done, and that's not very good. I mean, I was always optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an optimist by nature. I had hoped, I hoped that there wasn't going to be a lockout. And then when the lockout came, I thought, they'll get it done by February 1st, and spring training would open on time, and I'd get to, get on my flight to Sarasota and spend 6 weeks in spring training. And that's not going to happen. And now I've gone all the way to thinking that if they get this thing done by April 1st, that's sort of what I'm looking at now. I mean, I'd like to say they could get it done in 3 weeks. I mean,
right.
if they need to get this thing done in 3 weeks if they're going to start the season on time, basically. I mean, March 1st is if they can get it done by March 1st, they can start the season on time. Now, these things can turn very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen, in my own family, I've seen, labor talks, and I've, had my father on strike a number of times in the far distant past, and know that labor talks move very slowly, and then they find some common ground. And they work it out because they have to work it out. And what the players are saying is the mediator is not going to help. Because people might think, oh well, they're gonna a mediator could help them compromise. Well, it's not an arbitrator, who's going to lay down the the terms of the agreement.
Right.
And they're just feeling that this would slow things down, that they were making some progress, and that here the owners are using this as a delaying tactic, because up till now, owners have had all the leverage. Pretty soon, the players are going to start getting the leverage, because if there are no games on opening day, well, players will be withholding their services, and everybody loses in a strike. Everybody loses.
Mm-hmm.
The players, the owners, the fans, all lose in the strike. But until the players can withhold something, then the owners still have the leverage. The owners have lost already, because they have not gotten, the publicity that they would have gotten out of the off season. So last 2 months or so, they haven't been able to have their fan fests and their conventions and their caravans and their Christmas visits to groups, to schools and stuff, and charities with players. And that's hurting. That hurts the game. There's been no good publicity about the game. And spring training, especially the early part of spring training, is an infomercial for the owners. The owners, the owners use that to get people interested in baseball again. Oh, the weather's nice. The weather's nice down here. Good times are coming. Well, they're not going to get any of that. So, I know that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, but that's where we are.
Hey, Rich, this is Ryan Blake sitting in for Zach this week. When Paul and I opened the show, we were touching on this a little bit, and I mentioned that I feel like personally that the players eventually are going to budge and have a little more leeway. Then we had Stan the Fan Charles on for his weekly segment, and he said that he thinks the owners could shift at any moment. How do you personally see this playing out? Do you think it's more likely that the owners or the players start to budge a little bit more? Because I think that the players are going to want to get back on the field, but the flip side of the coin is that the owners don't want to miss out on revenue by losing out on regular season games. What do you think?
Well, Ryan, I think it's both. Whatever settlement they get on March 1st or April 1st, they could have gotten on December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned firsthand in my family in labor negotiations, my father was a union member, and in his younger days, he would say he was gung ho about, well, let's strike, let's show them. And then he'd realize that whatever incremental gains were made in a lengthy strike was not worth the cost that was paid. Okay? Whatever the players and the owners are going to get from this, they could have gotten they could have gotten this on December 1st if they had wanted to. And what they're doing is losing goodwill. They've already lost ticket sales that they're not going to get back. People who would go to spring training don't want to go to spring training because they don't know if they're going to see games. I mean, I've heard from many fans who are upset because this was the year, after two incomplete spring trainings, fans were eager to go down to Sarasota and have a good time, and they're not going to go because they don't know what's going to happen. So, the club loses out on ticket sales, and the restaurants and hotels and other attractions in Sarasota lose out on money that people would have spent down there, and people get turned off. I mean, I remember the 94-95 strike. There were a number of people who said, well, I'm never going back to games. And, a lot of them never did go back to games. I know fans always do say that, and the majority of them go back, but they will end up losing. If they have a strike, that lasts into the season, they will end up losing customers that they will not get back. And so whatever gains they get will not be worth it.
Yeah, I think that what owners are failing to realize here is like, look, in 2020 you had no fans in the stands. In 2021, you had limited capacity for much of the season, and people weren't getting their season tickets in October, November, December, January because they weren't sure when they were going to be allowed back to the ballpark. So why spend money on tickets you might not be able to use? Now you enter 2022, and Rich, they've contacted me. I still have a credit from 2020 for my ticket plan, and I'm not buying any tickets right now because I don't know when they're going to be back on the field. They are losing money right now because I think a lot of people feel like I do. Why am I going to spend money on your product when I don't know if there's going to be a product to spend the money on?
Sure, I think you're absolutely right. And baseball, baseball has looked really bad in the last few months.
Yep.
While the
Last
NFL,
few years, really.
while the NFL has presented some of its most compelling games in history.
Absolutely.
And the NFL has a boatload of problems. They have the Washington Commanders sexual impropriety scandal, the Brian Flores lawsuit this week, concussions. We can go on and
all
on.
the stuff with the Raiders that happened
Right,
this year.
right, and the Raiders. Yeah, I mean, we can go on and on. But their ratings are strong, and baseball's ratings are weak because baseball can't get its act together. It's like if you ask fans, let me ask you two guys are committed fans.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that baseball games take too much time?
I don't.
Neither do I.
I don't. I want as much baseball as I can get. If it's
Okay, well, see, I do. I see. Okay, you're okay with World Series games going 3 hours and 50 minutes?
No, I will tell you right now, the commercial breaks lasting 5 minutes during the postseason is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that it took 2.5 hours to complete 4 innings in an Astros White Sox game this postseason, that's
right.
ridiculous, and that's all about the money.
Yeah, but they could put a pitch clock in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think they need a pitch clock, 100%.
But they wouldn't do. But they won't do. But Manfred won't do it because that will anger the players. The players say that they don't want anything that will distract from their art. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what they've said.
Mm-hmm.
And baseball needs to. Baseball's a great game, and it needs to change. It needs to change. Hopefully, here with the Orioles moving out the fence will make the game a much more interesting one, to watch, whether they win or lose. But we've had a game that's too much dependent on home runs, strikeouts, and walks and shifts. And I at first was against shift rules.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, players will find a way. But no, players are rewarded for hitting home runs.
Yeah.
And they're not rewarded, apparently, for hitting singles. So they continue to bat into the shift. And so let's try moving. Let's try the regulation with 2 guys on each side of second base.
Yeah, I'd be for that personally.
Yeah,
No.
but you see, but that's the kind of stuff we need. Football jiggers its rules around all the time to
Mm-hmm.
make it, and in a lot of ways it's overregulated,
right?
Over legislated, because people can't necessarily understand the rules, and baseball hasn't done that. But baseball has gone too far in not adapting. It took forever to go to instant replay, and now with instant replay, there's stuff that you think they should be able to look at, but they can't by rule, which seems absurd.
Yeah.
And why doesn't baseball do what football does and allow and have the crew chief explain explain controversial calls
Absolutely.
on the field? I mean, when you sit in the stands, or I'm in the press box and I see a play and the manager and the umpire are arguing about it, we don't necessarily know what the argument is about.
Mm-hmm.
And why baseball doesn't have the umpires explain to the fans and to the media. I mean, after the game, then we're asking the manager, well, what was that argument about? Lots of times.
Right.
So baseball needs to. Baseball is so busy. The owners and the players are so busy fighting each other that they don't realize that they need to be out promoting the game, and this is all just hurting the game. Obviously, I'm prejudiced because this is my livelihood. This is what I do.
Absolutely.
This is what I do 24/7, 365 days a year. So, I have a vested interest in it. But obviously, I'm a fan of the game too. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this.
Right. Now, Rich, I do want to go back to what you were talking about the length of games. And I think that the reason that Ryan and I don't mind that the games go 3 hours and 5 minutes on average is because really you're only talking about the difference in maybe 7 to 10 minutes for average games if you implement certain things. I think more so the reason that we see these longer games now is because what you mentioned, the 3 true outcomes baseball, the home run, the strikeout, and the walk. I think back in the day you would see shorter games because pitchers were going deeper into games and pitchers were honing their craft. Now it's who can throw 100 miles an hour and give me 5 innings, and then we'll have 4 pitching changes in the last 4 innings that's going to take up a ton of time. I think if we put an emphasis back on honing your craft, being more of a finesse pitcher, and being able to get guys out and to swing at your pitches, rather than I can throw 100 and I can strike you out on 5 pitches, that would speed the game up alone.
Yep. I mean, you sound like you sound like us older guys,
Yeah,
but no. I mean, I hate to, and I hate to say, and I hate to be when people say, "Oh, things were better in the old days." There are a lot of stuff now. There's a lot of stuff that's better now. The infield play that you see, especially in the postseason, is so much better than you've ever seen it in baseball. I mean, the athletes are so much better now than you've ever seen in baseball. Yes, and when we're talking about people throwing harder because they're better athletes.
Right.
And we need to be emphasizing the great athletes that baseball has. And hopefully, as I said, maybe maybe the new dimensions at the ballpark will make for more athleticism, or so I think that'll be interesting.
I'm actually kind of excited. I'm one of the few. I'm kind of excited about what the new dimensions in the ballpark are going to do for this team because, A, I think it's going to make the pitching a little bit better. I think it's going to attract free agent pitchers here once this team is more competitive and in contention. But I also think it ultimately should make the Orioles a better team of hitters because it's going to be like, okay, rather than try and hit a ball 420 feet to get it out of the ballpark, why don't I learn to spray the ball all over the field? And then you have a guy like Colton Cowser who's coming up through your system who already does that. You're going to see a lot more extra base hits. I think it makes your team more complete hitters. What are your thoughts on that, Rich?
Well, I think so because I think when Elias and Sig Maedel were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about the Orioles have the kind of athletic young players who are going to be able to adapt to it. I think even some of the guys they have now, Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes and maybe Ryan McKenna, and maybe even Jorge Mateo are going to be guys who can adapt to that. I mean, a really good player isn't going to already hits to all fields. I mean, I think somebody like Adley Rutschman is going to be good no matter what the dimensions of the ballpark are. And yes, I think that it could attract free agent pitching, but that's that's a long way off because I think the team's going to have to show it gets better. And one of the things that if they have a strike and a lockout and this continues and it's gonna and it takes a month to settle it and you only have a 130 game season, well, you don't really get the true look at the ball club that you want. I mean, so many people were fooled after the 60 game season.
Yeah.
Because they were quote unquote only 10 games over 500, under 500, and they thought, oh well, teams we're on our way. Well, if that team had played 162 games, I think they would have had a similar record to what they did last year.
I agree.
And they were already at and that 10 games under 500 was basically a 95 loss season. I mean, if they played a full 162 game season this year and they lost, between 95 and 100 games, I don't know that people would think that was, that was great progress.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I looked that number up myself and saw 95 plus losses. Then you see that this team was 15-16 after John Means no hitter, and then they fell off a cliff and they ended up losing 110 ball games. I think that's very similar to what you would have seen in 2020 had they played the 162 game season. We are on the same page there as far as that is concerned. Now, regarding the Orioles and where they're headed, Adley Rutschman's going to be on this team sooner rather than later once they get back on the field. I've maintained for quite a while now that you don't expose a guy like Adley Rutschman and Grayson Rodriguez to the brand of baseball the Orioles have been playing for the last 4 years. Once Adley gets here, do you think that expedites this process and maybe we start seeing a little bit more of a little bit better baseball on the field? And to add to that question there, Rich, Brandon Hyde's managing as a lame duck manager right now. I can't imagine they're not giving him talent to evaluate him properly in this fourth and possibly final season that he'll be here in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, I think that Rutschman should improve the ball club because the catcher is the most important position player on the field, and of course they hope that he'll have positive impact on the pitching staff as well as offensively. And a lot of the pitchers that he caught in the minor leagues did really well. So I think that's a good assumption. But just because you might have Adley Rutschman for 5 months and Grayson Rodriguez for 3 or 4 months doesn't mean that the team's already going to go from 110 losses to 88.
Right.
That's sort of it. They need other stuff. They need some of these guys that they had on the pitching staff last year: Zach Lothar, Alexander Wells, Michael Baumann, Dean Kramer, Zimmerman, Aiken. They need a couple of those guys to improve. Maybe Rutschman can get them to improve, or maybe they've matured and do well. But that's what they need for the ball club to start turning around, because you want people at the end of this season. The goal really at the end of this season, I think, is to say, as a fan, are you feeling better about the team than you have been in these last few years? I mean, that's the goal, because now everybody's down on the current team, and they're hoping that with all this talent in the minor leagues that things are going to get better. Well, once the top prospects come up, and maybe some others, then our fans going to look at the product in the field and say, I see what they're doing. Now I can feel better, even if their record still isn't that good. And I think that's in a lot of ways what Hyde's going to be judged on.
Yeah, the time is now to start evaluating him. The first 3 years, I don't know how you could, based on the talent that he was given, the roster that he was giving, the pitching that he was giving. I think this is the year where they need to look at him and say, how are you making this team better on a day-to-day basis? And I think that hopefully that does start this year. Now, Rich, before we let you go, real quick, Cedric Mullins, we found out that he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease prior to last season. He had a surgery to remove 10 centimeters of his intestine. Then he got an infection, lost 20 pounds, and went out and put up one of the greatest seasons in Orioles history. How much more impressive was his season last year, dealing with what he was dealing with? And does that change our expectations? Because a lot of us are expecting a regression this year, but does that maybe change the expectations knowing that now he has a full, healthy offseason?
Well, what's fascinating to me is, two of your best players on the team recovered from very serious illnesses.
Yeah.
And Cedric was very private about it until now, where Trey Mancini was public about it, and he did a good he did good things in raising awareness about the importance of getting colonoscopies and colorectal cancer, and hopefully Mullins will do the same with Crohn's disease. I don't want to speculate on his on his stats, because it's going to be hard for him to have another 30-30 year,
right?
Particularly if they don't play 162 games.
That's true.
So that, you see, that's one of the reasons. As fans, you want 162 games because that's how you evaluate.
Exactly.
If they play 130 games and he has 23 homers and 22 stolen bases, oh gee, what would he have gotten a 30-30 again? You don't want to do that.
Right.
So I just think that what he did was a very good thing, and it was his choice and his right to remain private with his issues, as a lot of people do about their medical issues, whether they're ball players or whether they're just regular people who decide to keep their illnesses private. So I think that he should be admired for his play on the field and now his work off the field.
Well, Rich, we certainly admire you here on the Bat Around, man. You make my job easy. I really do appreciate you taking some time for us. We will talk to you again down the line. Enjoy the rest of your off season. Hopefully it's not too much longer for you.
Okay, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you, Ryan.
Take care, Rich.
And that was Rich Dubroff joining us for the program. And like I said, man, Rich makes my job that much easier because, we're sitting here on February 5th. There's been nothing in baseball since December 1st. Nothing. Even the Orioles signing of Jordan Lyles isn't official yet because he has to pass a physical and actually sign on the dotted line. And Rich just gave us 30 minutes of baseball conversation. That was awesome.
It was great.
We got to get another break here. When we come back, Ryan is going to sound off in Zach's place, and then we'll get to Orioles banter. That and more coming up on the Bat Around.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Need to hone your computer skills to boost your career? Or maybe you want an IT certification? CCBC Continuing Education has the courses and programs you need for a career in the computer field. And it's all tuition free. From the basics to specialized training, we have the classes you need, from hardware to programming to cybersecurity and so much more. It's your choice. It's your career. Call 443-840-4700 or visit ccbcmd.edu/computer training.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-Point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
Hey guys, it's Paul Valley,
and there's a new era of Glenn Clark Radio as I've joined Glenn every weekday from 10 a.m. to noon. There will be some changes, but what won't change is the absolute best daily discussion of Baltimore sports.
New Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
He is Kevin Zeitler.
Thank you. Very happy to be a part of this.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Quarterback for the University of Maryland, Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
Coach Mark Turgeon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
You can watch us live at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
All right, welcome back to the Bat Around on a cold but sunny Saturday here in Baltimore. I don't know if you know this or not, but I start almost every show during the off season talking about the crap weather because I hate the winter. I hate the cold. Unless you live at a ski resort, there's no need. There's just no need for me. And don't even get me started on the lack of need for snow. Cannot stand it. Zach loves the winter. He doesn't like this cold, but he loves it in the high 30s, low 40s. He loves that stuff. I don't understand. I almost fired him from the show for that opinion.
Man, I don't like the cold either at all. I will say I do like one good snow a year. Give me like 8 to 12 inches of snow just once, and then warm it back up, baby. I do not want to be cold. I do not want to shovel snow. But I appreciate it every once in a while. But I hate having to put on 4 jackets when I go outside. I wore 2 hoodies today. I had another jacket over top of this one. It's not my thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. You have a girlfriend who you're super into, and when you guys get a house together, you're living in an apartment right now, right?
Yeah, an apartment that does not have a very good heating system. We have a ton of blankets.
Well, I think everybody has. My wife has a ton of blankets. I think that's the thing. You know what I mean?
I actually got my girlfriend a weighted blanket for Christmas.
Nice. Yeah. I got Laura a sleep pod that I thought that she would love. Her mom thought she would love it. She has never used it. She basically told me it was a stupid gift when she opened it. She didn't say it in that many words. She was like, "I'm just never gonna use this." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me."
Well, you won't know that she doesn't love it if she never uses it. So I guess that's a positive.
That's true. But she wraps herself up in her blankets like a cocoon every single night, and this thing is basically a blanket cocoon. I thought now you don't have to wrap yourself in your blankets because you have this, and she won't even give it a fair try. Whatever. I digress. This is a baseball show, not Paul's wife's blanket preferences. You're going to sound off on something. Ryan's sounding off segment is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Football. While we can bet on sports in Maryland now, we still can't bet online or on our phones. However, you can feel like you're betting totally legally and right on your phone by playing Underdog Fantasy Football. We've got player props, parlays, and traditional fantasy games. They're all available. And, Ryan, we're going to give you some free money to play with thanks to our friends at Underdog Fantasy Football. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use the code PRESSBOX, and whatever you download, up to $100 we will match. That's right, up to $100 when you use the code PRESSBOX. If you want to go out there and bet $13.17, we'll match you $13.17, up to $100. You can do that with Underdog Fantasy Football. Ryan, what do you have for us today?
Well, first of all, I didn't know my segment had a sponsor, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad I wrote out what I wanted to say instead of just relying on bullet points like I've done in the past. But one of my personal favorite parts of the Major League Baseball offseason, and especially now that the Orioles have a top farm system that we can actually be excited about, is the release of prospect rankings. And I think we're going to get into that in a little bit. We may or may not, but MLB Pipeline is putting theirs off until the lockout's over since they can't, or I guess at least won't, put any image or likeness of players on their website. So any 40-man roster guys are not going to be on their website. And as a result, MLB Pipeline's putting off their top 100 rankings at this point. But whether you're in the mood to praise the people over at Baseball America for putting a bunch of the Orioles in the top 100, or you want to yell about how much Keith Law hates the Orioles, it's an opportunity to see how your prospects stack up against those from around the league. And it's important to remember, though, and this is what I want to talk about, that these rankings are subjective and most likely wrong, to put it bluntly. For example, Baseball America ranks Colton Cowser 98th, behind both D.L. Hall and Gunnar Henderson, both of whom rank in the 50s, according to Baseball America. Baseball Prospectus ranks Cowser 46th, ahead of both Hall and Henderson, both of whom are in the 80s on Baseball Prospectus's rankings. So simple mathematics will tell you that at least one of them has to be wrong, and perhaps both of them will be. Just for fun, though, let's take a look back at some MLB Pipeline rankings. In 2015, John Means was ranked 29th in the Orioles system. You know who was ranked 9th that year, Paul? Pat Connaughton.
Ah, the basketball player out of Notre Dame.
The same Pat Connaughton who has averaged 5.8 points per game in his 7-year career in the National Basketball Association. He was ranked 20 spots ahead of John Means on the 2015 Orioles organizational rankings. Also in 2015, Trey Mancini was ranked 23rd. Ranked 3rd that year for the Orioles was Christian Walker.
Nice.
Walker's accumulated 3.7 B WAR in his career. Trey Mancini had 3.7 B WAR in 2019. 2016, Jomar Reyes and Chance Sisco were the Orioles' top hitting prospects. Ranked below them both was Ryan Mountcastle. John Means also fell out of the top 30 that year. In 2017, John Means appeared at 29, while Cody Sedlock and Chris Lee were ranked 2nd and 7th, respectively.
Ah, man, I forgot about Chris Lee.
So did I until I was doing research for this bit. Cedric Mullins was ranked 20th that year as well. Now, I don't say any of this to discredit any of the hard work that goes into ranking prospects. It's a field that I've been trying to get into for the last few years of my life, sort of on hold now, but it's something that I hold near and dear. And I realize that to formulate these opinions based on tangible evidence and research requires pretty much a full-time workload over the course of several months, whether it's reading other scouting reports, doing film breakdown, things like that. It's a legit process. But don't expect a list of 100 guys across baseball or 30 in an organization to translate directly to the bigs, because that simply is not going to happen. Another thing I wanted to point out was that the Orioles' best prospects are not limited to the guys you're seeing on these top 100 lists. Just because you're not seeing someone like Kobe Mayo doesn't mean that 2 years down the road he's not going to be a top 20 or 30 prospect in baseball. There are already people who are saying that the 2024 rankings, Mayo might be the top hitting prospect in the game, which would certainly be exciting. But you don't see him on top 100 list right now because proximity plays an issue as well.
Right.
Our best pitcher 5 years down the road might not be Grayson Rodriguez or DL Hall. It might be Zach Peak or Drew Rahm or Gene Pinto. We don't know. Now, I know it sounds like I'm putting down the profession, which would be counterproductive, like I said, since I've been trying to get into this profession for a few years now. But I just understand how the human brain, and more specifically the sports fan brain, functions. It's so easy to overreact when we see these prospect rankings. It's easy to tweet your displeasure at Baseball Prospectus for being too low on Gunnar Henderson. It's easy to tell Keith Law he's an idiot because he thinks Grayson Rodriguez might have a mechanical flaw or two that puts him behind Shane Baz, But much like baseball is a game of failure, so is scouting. People are going to be wrong just as often, if not more often, than they're going to be right. The best we can do now as Orioles fans is be thankful that we have a farm system that boasts players many view highly, and hope that translates to big league success in the future, because we really won't know for sure until we see it. So.
Well, to your point, we had Kyle Glazer from Baseball America on the show last week talking about the prospects, and I was asking why Jordan Westburg's not on the list, and a guy like Kyle Stowers, who was the co-minor league player of the year for the Orioles last year and led the farm in home runs, and I think he was second in RBIs. And he said, these prospects, they're the top 100 prospects that we think are going to have the best 100 careers. And the word in there is that we think. None of this is based on fact. This is all opinion. It's all what they think. Now, look, their opinion and their thought process is based on a lot of work, like you said, that they put in there. But Keith Law has Grayson Rodriguez ranked, I think it's 14th as his overall prospects. Now, look, he's higher on him now than he's ever been in the past. You can't deny the body of work that Grayson Rodriguez has put out. But he's, I think, his third pitcher on his list.
Behind Shane Baz and Hunter Green.
Yeah, and every other listing has him as the number one pitching prospect in baseball. And this is a guy who we've talked to J.J. Cooper on Glenn Clark Radio. We talked to Kyle Glazer last week. They think that this guy is an elite pitching prospect. They think that he can be up there at the top of the game as far as starting pitchers are concerned. And to his credit, so does Keith Law.
Yeah.
He just doesn't rate him as high as somebody else. And maybe he's right. Maybe Shane Baz comes out and pitches to a career ERA of 2.5. And Grayson Rodriguez has a career ERA of 3.1. Either way, that's a damn good pitcher. And you're not going to tell me that a guy like Jordan Westberg isn't going to have a better career than somebody who's ranked 97th right now. I don't know off the top of my head the top 100 prospects, but undoubtedly, you're going to find a ton of players who have better careers that are on the outside looking in than some of these guys that are on these top lists. You look at Tom Brady in the NFL. He's the greatest quarterback that's ever lived, and he was drafted at the end of the 6th round. It's Antonio Brown was a 6th-round draft pick in the NFL. Now, look, it's two different sports, but you get my overall point.
23 teams passed on Mike Trout.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. The Orioles took Matt Hopgood 9th overall one year. They took Billy Rowell.
Why do you have to bring up these names, man?
Because it's a thing, man. The Orioles had 4 first-round draft picks in 1998, and only one of them had a productive major league career, and that was Brian Roberts. These are it's baseball more than any other sport is so hit or miss. You have no idea because it's the hardest team sport in the world. It's the hardest team sport in the world. These guys, look at a guy like Jeff Rabelais. Jeff Rabelais was a putrid Major League Baseball player. He had his role. He was a utility player, and he owned Randy Johnson, which is some crazy crap.
Yeah, who would have thought?
But that guy, for as bad as we thought he was, at that point in his life, was one of the best 750 players in the game.
Yeah.
Actually, at that point, you got to take 60 players off. He was one of the best 690 players in the world at baseball. That's how hard this game is. That a guy like Jeff Rabelais was so bad, but was one of the best 690 players in the world at baseball.
The guys on your team who you tweet at and tell them that they suck when they strike out 3 times a game, they were the guys on their high school and college teams that absolutely raked, that everyone came to see.
That had a golden freaking ticket to life.
Yep.
This is the hardest game in the world to play next to, like, golf, but it's the hardest team sport to play, and it's really a crapshoot. It's all a guessing game. You know, you could look at the number 1 overall pick, Hunter Davis, right? That's his name, right? Hunter Davis?
Henry Davis.
Henry Davis. You know what? That's not the first time I've called him Hunter Davis. I think there is a Hunter Davis in baseball. But Henry Davis, you look at him, number 1 pick in the draft by the Pittsburgh Pirates, he might never see the field. He might never see the major leagues. He will because he's number 1 overall pick, and they're going to give him a shot. But he might turn into Travis Snyder.
Yeah.
You know, you have no idea. They put a lot of effort, a lot of time, and devotion into these things, but they don't really know.
Right.
They just think they know.
And that's
they'll
exactly
tell you.
my point.
Exactly. We are on the same page there, my man. Great segment.
Thank you.
Segment. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for filling in for Zach on that one. Now let's get to some Orioles banter here. Off season is at a standstill for obvious reasons. There is going to be a free agent free-for-all. When this thing is over and they're like, all right, we got to get to spring training. We got to ramp things up. We got to get this season started. There's a ton of guys that do not have a team right now. How crazy is this signing period going to be once the CBA is agreed upon?
I mean, the dominoes are going to start to fall when the Orioles sign Carlos Correa and Clayton Kershaw. That's about all I know. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be pretty wild. I mean, especially with a guy like Correa still on the market. You know, Stan mentioned that he's always looking at MLB trade rumors, and you've got, you know, speculation on who Correa's team's going to be, and I mean, I think it's going to be madness, you know, because it's going to be the rush to not only get your teams to spring training, but who's going to be on these teams. The Rule 5 draft hasn't even happened. I don't know if we're going to have a Rule 5 draft. We have to, right?
I saw that was your tweet that you put out, or your pseudonym tweet that you put out. Are you? No. You're Orioles fans.
I'm Orioles fan problems.
Orioles fan problems. It was Orioles fan therapy.
Oh yeah, that's not.
They put out a tweet that I get them confused. My apologies, bud. But they put out a tweet saying, so if spring training gets delayed, do we just skip the Rule 5 draft? Like, is a guy like Robert Newstrom safe?
Yeah, I don't. That's what I want to know. Are we gonna have Robert Newstrom in the outfield mix? Are we gonna have Nick Vespi in the bullpen? Like, these are the questions that we're not gonna sign Correa. We're not gonna sign any more big name free agents. We still need to put Jordan Lyles pen to paper. But I want to know if any of these young guys who I personally like are gonna get swiped up by other teams. I don't know if that's even gonna be an option this year.
Yeah, and it's crazy where we are in the game right now, and it's crazy that there's so many players out there that have no idea where they're going. They have no idea where. I think it's going to be a whirlwind, man. I think the day that they agree to something, you're going to start seeing all these guys start signing. And my wondering, and I actually had this in my notes as a question for Rich, but we didn't get to it because he was here for a half an hour.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get to it. Do you think that we're going to see guys sign for lesser deals just so they know where they're going and they can get started?
Absolutely.
You know, like, I don't think Carlos Correa is signing for less than what he feels he's worth.
No, not a guy like Correa,
You know,
but someone like Kershaw or a Chris
Greinke.
Bryant, perhaps. Greinke. You know, just looking down this list, I mean, you got Trevor Story, Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, Carlos Rodon, Anthony Rizzo, Jorge Soler, Michael Conforto. All these guys are still out on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I can certainly see a situation where they're taking less just so that they know they have somewhere to go. And now, will they be shorter term deals? Probably. I could see a guy like Conforto going for a 1 or 2 year kind of prove it deal at a lesser value, just so he knows, who he's going to be competing with for outfield jobs, because he was an MVP candidate a couple years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And
He fell off last year. Yeah.
But I mean, I could certainly see guys taking lesser deals just so that once this all gets resolved. I mean, we don't know how long there's going to be for spring training. We don't know if there's going to be a buffer time between the new agreement and the start of spring training. We really don't know, but. I mean, if it were me in this position, I would want to know where I'm going to be playing this year. So I'd rather get a deal done even if it means a couple less million, maybe.
Yeah, and then you look at the Orioles, and how does this impact how they move in free agency? We saw them sign Jordan Lyles. Look, people make fun of the signing. They gave $7 million to a guy with a 5.15 ERA. And I get that. I get it. But I've said it on the show. Do a little bit more research on Jordan Lyles. 2 out of every 3 times he gave you a 3.20 ERA. He went out there. He had 23 starts where he gave up 3 runs or less last year. And he pitched 180 innings. They gave him $7 million. When have we seen this regime give anybody $7 million? It's the first time. It's the first time. And if you ask Rich and you ask John Mioli, who no longer writes for the Baltimore Sun but still has his own thing about the Orioles, you ask Nathan Ruiz, they'll tell you the Orioles are probably going to go out and sign another starting pitcher. You don't know who it's going to be. It could be Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey could be back. Or they could go out and they could sign somebody to – I do believe they're going to sign another starting pitcher to a major league deal. Not $7 million, but a couple million. They'll give somebody a couple million. I know, because they have to, that they're going to sign a catcher to a major league deal. It could be Caleb Joseph. It could be Robinson Chirinos. I don't think it'll be a guy like Chirinos or Wilson Ramos, but it could be a guy like Kurt Suzuki, who's 38 years old and is still a capable catcher who will be a solid guy for a month if they do the service clock manipulation and they bring up Rutschman on May 1st and they need somebody to start for a month and then be the backup. It could be a guy like that, but somebody is going to get a major league deal, right? I'm just interested. I'm very interested to see how the Orioles spend their money, how much they're going to spend, because I think that will really give us a glimpse into how they're feeling about where this rebuild is.
And also, will a potential CBA agreement require them to spend to hit a certain minimum threshold? We don't know that either.
That's something that I really want in the CBA. At first, I was like, "There's no way people are going for that." And the more I think about it, the more likely I think it is. And I think it was proposed like start at $100 million. There's just no way. And if you do start at $100 million, it's got to be something that you kind of slowly get to. That you don't implement for this year. Right. There's just too much going on and too little time.
Otherwise, you're going to see Kurt Suzuki signing with the Orioles for 1 year, $27 million.
Yeah. Like you just. To get to that threshold, you got to incrementally get there.
Yeah.
So if you say, all right, teams have to spend a minimum of $65 million this year, $85 million next year, and then the year after that's $100 million, that's where it sits, and it may go up, but it's not going back down. That's something I could totally see happening, and I'd be all for. If you tell me that the Orioles have to raise their payroll to $65 million this year, they have no choice but to go out and get some starting pitching and get some relief help and people that can help this ball club. Now, there's the other end of that, and Glenn and I have talked about this on his show, where maybe they don't spend that money on free agents. Maybe they spend that money on locking up a guy like Trey Mancini and John Means and Cedric Mullins. So they're spending it on the guys that they already have in-house. That remains to be seen. That's a motto of this show. Zach and I always joke, it remains to be seen. We have really no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But, man, I am excited. I always find a reason to get excited for the Orioles. It's easy to do that because you love the team and you have hope. You have hopes right now. Now, ask me how excited I am in the middle of June when they're 30 games under 500 again.
Right.
But you're looking at Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins and a healthy Trey Mancini, Ryan Mountcastle, Adley Rutschman. For this lineup, I'm excited about, man. I'm excited.
Yeah.
The pitching, man. The pitching. That's the downfall. That's always been when the Orioles are bad, it's because they don't have the pitching. They find a way to get the hitting more often than not, except for 2018 when the entire team forgot how to hit with runners in scoring position. But I digress. Yeah. They find a way to get the hitting. The pitching is always subpar, but you have John Means. Grayson Rodriguez is coming. We'll talk about DL Hall here in a minute. Hopefully he's coming. But I also think that getting the starting pitching back on a better level makes your bullpen that much better. The arms that they have in that bullpen are electric. They have Dylan Tate and Tanner Scott and Tyler Wells, Cole Salser. They have legitimate arms in that bullpen, and they were god-awful last year because they were pitching 6 innings every game.
Yeah, and so what did the Orioles do? They go out and sign Jordan Lyles, who is probably, if he stays healthy, he's going to give you 200 innings. I don't think.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy who consistently gives you 6-7 innings a start.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he's given up 3-4 runs, like you said, the Orioles' biggest problem last year, they had a ton of problems, but their bullpen was so overworked, and despite the talent that they have with those guys, they were pitching 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And, you bring in a guy like Lyles who's going to eat some innings and hopefully preserve the bullpen a little bit, give guys an extra day or two of rest. Who knows what the trickle-down effect is going to be in that bullpen. And it's going to make Brandon Hyde's job a lot easier when he's not having to go to arms that are hanging on by a thread.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to give Orioles fans less to complain about when they're going on Twitter trying to blame Brandon Hyde for a loss when he just had to use – he just had to use Travis Lakins for the 4th time this week.
Yeah, Travis Lakins, who, look, Travis Lakins, his 2020 season was such a smokescreen to me because, his ERA was like 2.80. He had a good year ERA-wise, but then I looked at his whip, and his whip was approaching 1.6.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, he's going to fall back here. And sure enough, he did.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he did. Travis Lakins is a good depth piece, but not a guy who should be in your everyday bullpen. In my opinion, and Brandon Hyde is forced to use guys like that and keep calling guys up like that because he's not given the starting depth that he needs to compete on a day in and day out basis. Now, what you have to look at with that is guys like Keegan Aiken and Dean Kramer who took serious steps back last year. They need these guys, Aiken, Kramer. The list goes on. Like Rich Dubroff said, Michael Ballman, Zach Lowther, Alexander Wells. They need to take steps forward this year. The Orioles only go as far as the starting pitching goes, and they were terrible last year because none of those guys came up to the big league level and performed well. Aiken had a handful of starts towards the end of the year where he looked solid. Not great, but solid. Somebody's got to step up and not necessarily become that next John Means, but be a 4 or 5 pitcher.
Yeah, you need someone who's going to be able to stay in your rotation for most of the season and pitch not terribly. And, there are plenty of potential candidates for that job, whether it's a guy like Aiken or Kramer who comes back from a rough year last year, or maybe it's a Bruce Zimmerman, or maybe it's a Michael Baumann or a Zach Lowther who comes up, or maybe it's Kyle Bradish who wins a job out of spring training and sticks around. But, you've got to have someone who can bridge the gap between, John Means, Jordan Lyles, maybe Grayson Rodriguez. There's got to be someone else there who can, at least give you a chance to win. They don't have to be, like you said, they don't have to be the next John Means. They just have to give you an opportunity to stay in the game. And the Orioles just haven't had those guys in the back end of the rotation. Or at the top, really. They just haven't had those guys, to put it simply.
And the other thing about John Means, hang on a second, take over. I almost called you Zach. Ryan, take over while I answer this.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, you look at a guy like Aiken and Kramer, and I you don't know how much of an impact the crackdown on, sticky stuff had on these guys. Guys who came up and they were good in 2019, good enough to at least be excited about. But like I said before, the Orioles need guys who are going to be able to be serviceable back end starters, and the guys who they've had filling in those roles the last couple years have not performed anywhere close to what you need from a back-end guy.
No, and then you look at guys at the top like John Means. He's been injured every year. He's had shoulder issues every year that he's been in the Orioles rotation, and he's as good as you want him to be until that shoulder injury comes up. And then when he comes back, he's not the same pitcher for a few weeks because he's coming back from an injury. So you need guys that can stay in the rotation, stay healthy, and get you innings. John Means, honestly, on a good team should be number 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I would think,
Absolutely.
and he's the Orioles' de facto ace because he's the best that they've got.
Yeah.
And Grayson Rodriguez, everything points to him. The only thing right now, I'm going to knock on wood, that it's going to derail him, it seems to me, is injury. And pitchers go through injuries. We just talked about what John Means. Pitchers, the only guy really that lived up to every dime is Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen in the history of baseball, and then the back issues the last 3 or 4 years, he hasn't pitched a complete season.
Yeah.
These injuries happen.
And Scherzer pitches like a guy whose shoulder should be exploding on impact every single pitch.
Absolutely. He's an alien. He's not from this planet.
It doesn't make sense.
But and then you look at a guy like DL Hall. Never thrown more than, I think it's 90 and a third is his high. 90 and a third innings is his highest. He's entering his 5th year in the Orioles system. And he had 7 innings and 30. He had 7 starts, 31 innings last year. And he's one of the top prospects in baseball because he can throw 4 pitches for strikes. He can get close to triple digits with his fastball. He needs to work on his command a little bit, but that dude has swing and miss stuff on every pitch that he's got.
Yeah.
And he's a lefty. But now you're looking at where does he fit in the Orioles' plans? If he comes out this year for me, if he wants to be a legitimate starting pitcher in the majors, this is a make-or-break year for DL Hall. I think he will be an Oriole, and I think he will be on a major league pitching staff. But it's up to him to decide: am I going to be a reliever, or am I going to be a starting pitcher? I think if he becomes a reliever, he could turn into Andrew Miller, or he could turn into Zach Britton. He could be the next great closer. And to me, it's kind of a failure.
Yeah, that's a massive disappointment.
Because that guy's
in the bullpen.
That guy's supposed to be pitching every 5th day for you, giving you 6 to 7 innings.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be one, and he's ranked so highly because of the potential and the talent that he has. But he's got to stay on the field, and this is the year, man, where he and Grayson Rodriguez, the Orioles need to open these guys up.
Yeah.
They need to get in there, and Grayson Rodriguez averaged under 5 innings a start.
He didn't touch 90 pitches last year in any single outing.
They need to, and that's why Mike Elias said at the end of last year, we're open to Grayson Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman being on our opening day roster. Rutschman, I can see. Rodriguez, as good as he is, you are not open to that because you got to send him to AAA and give him 6 to 7 innings every time out. Let that dude touch 100 pitches. Let that dude go out there and prove that he can get through a lineup a 3rd time. He didn't give him the opportunity last year.
I spoke to Matt Blood on my podcast, the Orioles director of player development, before last season, and I asked him what was going to be the biggest challenge with, returning to form after a shortened season with no minor league games in 2020. And he told me that the biggest issue was going to be keeping pitchers healthy, with workload management and injuries. And so for the beginning of the season, that's what I attributed to the short outings from Grayson Rodriguez, because he would come out and punch out 8 guys in 5 innings, give up 1 hit. He'd be at 63 pitches, and he wouldn't come back out for the 6th. I was like, all right, maybe they've got him on this strict pitch count. That's fine. I thought the leash was going to extend a little bit towards the end of the season. It didn't change at all.
No.
It was after 5 innings, you're done. It doesn't matter if you've thrown 55 pitches or 85 pitches. That's as far as you're going, and we're not going to let you go beyond that.
And you can understand it to a degree,
because
they're coming back from that pandemic, that shortened season where all he did and all DL Hall did was pitch at the alternate training site. That's all they did. And no matter how much they threw, you're not going to get enough of that in 3 months.
Right. You've got to stretch a guy out eventually, especially a guy like Grayson who was dominating and is supposed to be an anchor of our rotation for the next decade.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to let him go through a lineup a 3rd time and see what he's got. Because that's another reason he's lower on Keith Law's rankings than anywhere else. We don't know if he can pitch the 3rd time through an order because we haven't seen it. So, and that's a big benchmark of success for starting pitchers is how deep can they work into games successfully. And we don't know if Rodriguez is capable of that yet. We have no reason to believe he's not, but we also haven't physically seen it.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the main thing that they're going to have him working on at AAA this year is getting deeper into games, getting through a lineup a third time, prove that you can go out there, throw 100 pitches in the start, bounce back and come back 5 days later and throw 95 pitches in the start. But your arm can bounce back like that. And once he does, and if he's dominant, he'll be here sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
But the bottom line is we expect Grayson Rodriguez to be great. We expect Jordan Lyles to be an innings eater. You expect John Means to be John Means and hopefully get rid of the shoulder inflammation for a fourth straight year. After that, you got nothing else. And Kyle Bradish might be a thing, and Kevin Smith might be a thing. Garrett Stallings might be a thing eventually. But they got to get here. They got to get here, and they got to prove that they can stay here. And right now, it's what Dan Connolly talked about last year. And I'm not one to pat myself on the back or anything like that. But before Dan Connolly even wrote that article last year, I said on this show to Zach, dude, after Rodriguez and Hall, the Orioles farm system's pretty bare on pitching. It is. You can't run for that. You can get as mad at Dan Connolly as you want to get. If the Orioles have more pitching prospects, they're probably not pushing that wall back in left field as much. They might make some adjustments, but they're probably not pushing it back 30 feet and raising it 7 feet higher or 5 feet higher because you have guys in your system that are already pitching well. They know that they got to go out and sign some starting pitchers, and they know that you're getting a Kevin Millwood at the end of his career, or a Yovani Gallardo with back issues, or Ubaldo Jimenez who is taking a 2-month run with Cleveland and trying to turn that into a 4-year deal because the other guys aren't coming here. They're not going to do that, and that's why they push the wall back. It's not about what you it's about what you have in your system right now, but it's more so about who you want to attract to your system and how you're going to get competitive. And it's the exact opposite of what Andy McPhail said, where he said we're going to grow the arms, buy the bats. The Orioles are growing the bats, and they know they're going to have to buy the arms.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's going to have to happen. I'm here for it, man. I've never left. But, man, let's just get them on the field first. Let's get our S together on both sides, get back on the field, get spring training underway because I'm tired of the cold. I'm tired of not even being able to focus on baseball because there's nothing going on. Let's get it going and start this thing up. All right, today's show brought to you by Simply the Bets. It's our new gambling show brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets with Glenn Clark and myself every Wednesday morning at 11:30. FanDuel Sportsbooks GM Bruce Billick and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys to help give you all of the info you need and some suggestions. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sports at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. When we come back in, we'll close things out with a little bit of Orioles trivia here on the Bet Around.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest issue of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special annual Best of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The great Ron Simmons.
Damn.
Keith Lee.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le
champion.
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Letting that old GCR music run a little bit. This is now Bat Around Break 3 music, but it's Break 3 it's great music nonetheless. I'm Paul. This is Ryan Blake sitting in for Zack Goodman. We're back here on the Bat Around. Thanks for tuning in to our show today, guys. We're almost out of here as we're sitting here at about 12:07. I do have a little bit of trivia for Ryan. I was nervous I was going to have to skip the segment because I hadn't put any attention to it throughout the show, but I came up with something for you in the 11th hour, Ryan.
No.
You ready for this?
Bring it on.
All right. I think that I could have done this. There's one name I may have forgotten about, even though I know it, but I may have forgotten about it. In Orioles history, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players have hit 40 or more home runs. And in fact, we have no repeat offenders on this list. Each guy's done it once. Who are they? 8 players hit 40 or more home runs.
40 home runs. Okay. Chris Davis.
Chris Davis, number 1 in 2013 with 53.
Nelson Cruz.
Nelson Cruz, number 8 in 2014 with 40.
I can't remember if Trumbo ever hit 40. I don't think he did. He did?
Dude, he led the league in 2016.
I knew he led the league, but I thought it was with like 38 or something.
No, he hit 47.
Okay, all right. He was better than I thought.
That's shocking to me that you don't remember that.
I wasn't a big Trumbo guy personally.
Neither was I.
So I don't know.
The Orioles led the league in home had the single season leader 4 years in a row in home runs.
It was twice Davis, right, and then Cruz and Trumbo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So since it was twice Davis, what's the other year? I lied. Chris Davis is the only repeat offender.
He did it in 13 and 15, correct?
Mm-hmm. How many did he hit in 15?
47.
47. He hit 47 in 2015. So 2013, Davis led the Orioles led the league with 53. 2014, Nelson Cruz led the league with 40. In 2015, Davis led with 47. In 2016, Trumbo led with 47. I think you have 4 more. You got Cruz, you got both Davis, and you got Mark Trumbo.
Okay. Brady Anderson.
Brady Anderson, number 2 on the list. In 1996, he hit 50. He broke the Orioles single-season record that year that Chris Davis eventually broke, but who had the record before him?
I want to say it was Boog.
No.
Boog never hit 40?
No. His high was 39.
Oh, man. All right. So Frank won the Triple Crown. He had to have had 40.
He had 49.
49, okay.
Frank Robinson, number 3 on the list in 1966. So you have 2 guys left.
2 guys left. All right, I'm going to go out on a limb with one of them and say Jim Gentile.
Jim Gentile. Jim Gentile, 6th on the list. You got Jim Gentile, and you weren't sure about
1994, baby.
And you weren't you weren't sure about Trumbo, but you got Jim Gentile.
Or
Frank for that matter, and you got Jim Gentile.
Well, I knew Trumbo led the league. I just didn't know if it was over 40 or not. And I was pretty certain with Frank, but I didn't want to sound like an idiot if he hadn't done it, so I tried to play it a little skeptical there.
All right.
All right, so there's one more, you said?
There's one more.
Is it an obvious name?
So this was a guy who was always close to it, but never could get over the hump, and then in his final year, he hit over 40 home runs. Final year with the Orioles, he had over 40 home runs.
Ooh. I take it this is before my time.
No.
No?
You were
Oh, shoot.
You were a youngster.
Oh, now all right, now I feel bad. Okay. Eddie?
No. Eddie's career high was 33.
Okay. So I would have been a youngster. So this is late 90s, early 2000s.
Late 90s.
Late 90s. Who are our home run hitters? Well, see, B.J. Surhoff was my favorite player, but he wasn't a
His
big
career
home
high was
run guy.
28.
Yeah, he never hit too many. Oh gosh, I'm gonna be so mad if I hear the name and I don't get it right. Oh gosh. Late 90s. Cal never hit 40.
No. His career high was 34.
Oh man. I might have to ask you to say this one, but it's gonna hurt.
Oh, come on, man.
I was gonna guess Miguel Tejada until you said it was late 90s.
No, his career high was 34.
Okay. Rafi?
Rafael
Palmeiro.
Palmeiro. In 97, in 95 he hit 39. In 96 he hit 39. In 97 he hit 38. And in 98 he finally got over the hump and he hit 43. And then he went to the Rangers and then came back and did steroids.
Yeah. I'm glad I got it eventually. I feel bad that I didn't get it sooner, but I'm glad
that was a dude where that one doesn't surprise me because when I was a kid I just remember always thinking Palmeiro always hits 39 home runs and he never gets over the hump, and then he finally did it, and it was the first of 14 straight losing seasons that he finally did it. And man, that team started that year 10-3 because they started 97 11-2, and they went wire to wire.
Yeah.
98 they started 10-3, and they were off and running, and then everybody got hurt. Everybody got hurt except for like Palmeiro and Cal, and they went under 500 that year. And it's not even that everybody got hurt. Everybody got hurt and everybody got old.
Yeah.
And they fell under 500 that year and never returned again until 2012. But Palmeiro did it in 1998. Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Although I don't know that I can forgive you not knowing Frank Robinson had 49 home runs in 66 and not knowing that Trumbo hit 47. I mean, he hit 48 in 162 games because he played 161 that year.
That's right. Yeah.
And then in the wild card game, he homered to give the Orioles their lone run, and that would have been 48 homers in 162 games. But that was in the postseason. Now, quickly,
I've tried to erase Mark Trumbo from my memory.
Dude, I did not want them to re-sign him. That was a guy who hit 47 home runs, and yet his own base percentage was .318.
Yeah.
And he had no sacrifice flies. How do you have no sacrifice flies in a season as an everyday player? 161 games, and you have no sacrifice flies.
He'd have one or two with the wall moved back 30 feet, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably.
Maybe. But, man, he was...
By the way, to your point earlier, Cedric Mullins, I looked up his spray chart. He pulled... or center field, so there was no opposite field home runs for him last year. One of his 3 home runs in 2020 was opposite field.
I remember him hitting it up because it was a big one. It was like a go-ahead homer or something.
I think
like
so,
that.
but nothing last year. You were right about
that. And you look at the Orioles. You look at guys like oh my God, why am I forgetting? Anthony Santander, who bats mainly from the left side because it's always right-handed pitching. He's a switch hitter, but he hits a lot of home runs left-handed, and they all go directly. Oh God, he hits laser beam moonshots. If that's possible for a moonshot to be a laser beam, there are balls that I can't believe he haven't hit the warehouse.
Yeah.
That he's hit so hard and so far. But you look at a guy like him, and then Mullins batting from the left side, and the Orioles are going to miss it. And then Adley Rutschman, who's going to be coming up. The Orioles are going to miss out on some home runs for sure, but it's not going to impact them as much as people think.
You know who I think it will impact, and I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but how many times did we see a highlight last year of Gunnar Henderson going Oppo Taco?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that concerns me, and for some reason, and I know it's a few years down the road. I know he's capable of pulling home runs for sure, but some of those cheap, like the one that really stands out to me that I think of is Cal Statue Night, Matt Wieters' home run in the first inning.
Mm-hmm. I was there.
It was the front row, 3-4 seats in down the left field line. It barely cleared 330.
Well, but directly down the left field line is still 333.
That's true.
It's kind of like a pesky pole situation they got going on. It's 330 and he immediately just jets out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Gunnar. What Gunnar showed to me with all the Oppo Taco power last year was that he's a complete hitter.
Yes.
Right? He's a guy who can spray the ball all over the field. He's got to get stronger. He's got to get bigger. You got to remember he's doing this at 19 years old.
Right.
Right? So he's got to get bigger and he's got to get stronger. And he will. And apparently he already is. He already is. He looks so much different right now. I think you'll see him start to pull more balls. But I have no problem watching him hit balls off a 12-foot wall and getting doubles off him. He'll hit his share of home runs. Yeah, I'm not worried about him. Another guy who it's not going to really impact as far as the home runs is Colton Cowser.
Right.
That guy, he can hit the ball wherever he wants, and I think he'll have a lot of pull power. Purely left-handed hitter. So look, the Orioles. I honestly, people are up in arms about this freaking wall, man, and I kind of
it's not.
I poke fun because I think it's going to make them better. I think it's going to make the Orioles better,
too.
Overall better as a team, as a unit, because it's going to make them better hitters. Because they look, unless I really get into one, I'm not gonna hit as many home runs to left field. So let me just put the ball all over the field. The other thing is, if you're gonna hit a home run, Ryan Mountcastle would have lost 4 home runs last year, which is still a really good season for a guy in his first full year. But a guy like Ryan Mountcastle, if he hits a no-doubter home run, doesn't matter how. I mean, that wall could be 430, and he's still putting it over there. You know what I mean? I think it makes this team better, honestly.
You know what I've been doing is because I play a lot of MLB The Show.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hit a home run to left field, I try to think like, would that still be gone with the new dimensions? You really have to get a hold of it. Like it's halfway up the section that used to be there. But I think guys are gonna be all right. I will say there are two thoughts I have on it. Number one, right now it's gonna look weird. It's gonna be different. But a year from now, it's just going to be Camden Yards.
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
I've said that many times.
And I was just looking up here because I can't remember if it's Miguel Tejada or Brian Roberts who holds the Orioles single-season doubles record.
It's Brian Roberts, 56.
Roberts broke it, yeah. If I would put money right now on Colton Cowser breaking that record.
You think so?
I think he's my guy.
Are you as high on him as Zack Goodman is?
Yeah.
Zack loves. He thinks Colton Cowser could get here by the end of this year.
I don't know about that.
I think that's a stretch, but he loves Colton Cowser. I was told that he's like Nick Markakis, but with more power.
Yeah, I mean, if he puts on 15 pounds of muscle, he's going to be a legit 5-tool guy.
Yeah, I'm excited. That dude's that swing is so pretty. Now let me ask you a quick question. Connor Norby hit over 400 in college. Not home run, not a ton of home run power. He's strictly a second baseman. They took him in the second round. I saw him playing for ECU in the College World Series, and I was like, ooh, that's a guy I hope that the Orioles somehow find a way to get. And they got him in the second round. How do you value him? What do you see as his future?
He fits the mold of guys the Orioles have targeted in the draft the last couple of years under Elias. He's an up-the-middle player, good on-base skills, great eye at the plate, is going to walk just about as much as he's going to strike out. And that's been the book on these guys that Elias has taken in the early rounds the last few years. The positional restrictions concern me a little bit. I'd like to see them try him out, a couple other places around the infield, maybe throw him in a corner outfield, see what he's capable of, just as a little bit of an experiment in the minor leagues. But the Orioles need up-the-middle young prospects, and right now it's, you've got guys at the major league level like Ramon Arias who might stick around, Jorge Mateo might stick around, but we've been relying on Richie Martin and Pat Valleca to play these positions. And in the farm, you've got Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg, and then not a whole lot up the middle behind them. And infield,
you got Darryl Hernandez and you got Joey Ortiz.
Yeah, but those are guys who are still. These are a lot of
guys
guys who are still 3-4 years down the road.
That's true.
And I like these guys a lot. In fact, I not to brag, I just got a follow from Servideo on Twitter.
Nice.
So shout out my guy Anthony. But. I like Norby a lot. I think he's a good pick. My girlfriend went to ECU, so I watched a lot of their baseball games last year, and he's a guy who certainly impresses me. And if those those kind of on base skills are the ones that generally translate to the upper levels. A guy who's got good plate discipline at the lower levels is generally going to carry that over. Not necessarily to the same extent, but it's going to be part of his game going forward because that's a hard thing to have at a young age.
Yeah, it's really the only value that a guy like DJ Stewart has is his ability to get on base.
Yeah, but with Norby, hopefully you're going to have a guy who can do some other things well in addition to just drawing walks. And DJ Stewart, Zach and I, the last time I was here, it was basically me and Zach just talking a bunch of crap about DJ Stewart the whole show. But, I like Norby. I think he's got a future as at least a serviceable middle infielder. I hope, just for his sake even, that he can get a little more positional flexibility, because like you said, to this point he's pretty much just played second base.
Yeah. Jordan Westberg, 3 levels last year, hit at all 3 levels. Was very, very good player for the Orioles. He was a competitive balance pick. Technically, he's considered the first-round pick for the Orioles. Again, 3 levels in his first pro season. Do you see him making a debut for the Orioles this season?
I think it's going to be hard not to, especially if he continues playing at the same level he did last year. He's obviously shown already that he's going to be a fast riser as long as he continues to hit. And, I mentioned the guys who the Orioles have been relying on in the middle infield. If Mateo was a flash in the pan last year when he was healthy and exciting, Ramon Arias might replicate a little bit of what he did last year, but the Orioles are going to need some of these guys to make a name for themselves in the middle infield. And whether it's shortstop, second base, third base, I think Westberg has the flexibility to be able to play just about anywhere in the infield. I could certainly see him coming up as a September call up. Expanded rosters come in. I think there's certainly going to be a place for him, especially if we're not getting the production that we'd like to see at the middle infield.
A guy like Ramon Arias, look, when he finally got extensive playing time, he got hurt. Same thing with Jorge Mateo. And maybe their bodies aren't used to it. They should be. They played in the minors. They played their entire lives.
Yeah.
50 games shouldn't result in wear and tear. I think anyway. But Ramon Arias proved last year and in 2020, when he's in the lineup, he puts the bat on the ball.
Yeah.
He puts the bat on the ball. The dude makes contact. He come up in a situation. I'm like, this dude's coming through one way or another. He's doing something here that's going to help this ball club. That's a guy who I think should get first crack at second base this year for the Orioles to start the year. And then you wonder, are they going to play him there? Are they going to put him over at shortstop? Are they going to address shortstop through free agency? Are they going to go back out and try and get an Andrelton Simmons or a Freddie Galvis or maybe a Jonathan VR type of player? And then you wonder who's going to play third base. Did Kelvin Gutierrez do enough? That final 31 games last year, he slashed 290, 347, 419. Look, the OPS and the slugging percentage are low, but the batting average is high, and the on-base percentage is serviceable at 347. And then he hit 417 in the Dominican Winter League. Not the same competition as the major leagues, but does Kelvin Gutierrez have the inside track to be the Orioles' opening day third baseman this year?
Imagine how much better he'd be if he swung at fastballs right down the middle. he let a few of those go last year, with runners in scoring position late in the game that kind of got under my skin. But yeah, I mean he's shown a little bit of what he can do. But I will say, I forgot that according to most Orioles fans, Jahmai Jones is supposed to be our everyday superstar second baseman. So we might have to move Ramon Arias over to the left side of the infield.
Oh man, I'm not all in on Jahmai Jones.
Neither am I.
I
like him. I'd like to see him get a legitimate shot, but yeah, Arias should be the guy to start the year.
I saw a guy in Jahmai Jones last year who went to AAA and hit 237. If you're hitting 237 at AAA, why do I think you're going to be helpful at the big league level? And then he got called up it was almost as if Mike Elias was listening to the ire of the fans because he had done nothing to deserve that call up.
He was hot for about 2 weeks and then struggled for a month and then got called up. I didn't understand. It had to have been because of the fans clamoring for him,
right?
Or maybe it was just because Pat Valleca was playing so poorly. But
which kind of like Pat Valleca played so well in 2020. I mean, 278, 8 homers. He played in 54 games, and then he comes out and does and just craps the bed.
Yeah.
Last year. Like, I didn't think he was a difference maker on a 110-loss team. I didn't think he would be, but I expected better out of him. And then
you expect maybe a Ryan Flaherty type production from him. But
I expected better than that. Ryan Flaherty's production was...
You weren't a Flaherty guy?
No.
Neither was I.
A guy like Ryan Flaherty, there's like a cult love for that guy.
Yeah.
A guy like Ryan Flaherty, he has a role in the big leagues. He's a utility guy. He's a Jeff Rabelais, right? We talked about Rabelais earlier. He's Jeff Rabelais.
Yeah.
He has a role. Pat Valleca... They expected him, because of his versatility, to be able to play a bunch of different positions. They expected him to have maybe not an everyday role, but a 3 or 4 games a week kind of role, and he just didn't because he couldn't hit. He couldn't hit last year.
Right.
So I'm very interested to see which direction the Orioles go in with free agency this year. Are they going to – I will scream from a mountaintop how much I want Andrelton Simmons here. I don't care that his bat's not good anymore.
I don't
care.
Love that.
I want that glove behind a young pitching staff. want that glove in the infield. So if Andrelton Simmons is a guy, I'll be happy as a stopgap. Till Henderson or Westberg, or maybe they take Brooks Lee first overall this year, and he's a guy who ends up here. He is named after Brooks Robinson. We had him on Glenn Clark Radio, and his dad did name him after Brooks Robinson.
There you go.
So that would be a perfect fit here in Baltimore. Either way, very excited and interested to see what the Orioles are going to do in free agency with the rotation and with the infield, because the outfield, catcher, first base, they're pretty set. As we always say on the show, remains to be seen. I want to thank Stan the Fan Charles for joining us for his weekly segment. Great content, as always. Rich Dubroff for making my job easy. Thanks for coming on the show today. Special thank you to you, Ryan Blake, for sitting in for Zack Goodman. Did a hell of a job today. We did not skip a beat here on the Bat Around. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in every week, especially when we don't have anything going on in the world of baseball. Real quick, Super Bowl, who you got?
Rams by 6.
Rams by 6. I'm going to take the Bengals by 3 because I think they're playing with house money, and I think they really believe that they're the best team in football right now. So I'm taking the Bengals by 3 on Super Bowl Sunday.
I just want to say I'm very happy that Browns fans are either going to have to watch the Bengals win the Super Bowl or Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, either way, just
it's a lose-lose for them.
Cry into your pillows, guys. Guys, thanks for tuning into the Bat Around.